Okay, okay, now everything's working now. Oh my goodness. I started the stream and all the audio was like broken. So, I had to fix that. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, I want to say I think everything's working. It looks like it's live on YouTube. It has been so long since I've streamed, it's like difficult to yeah, it's working. Okay, cool. So now I just have to sit here. Now I just have to sit here and sweat because my room is super hot, despite the fact that it's like 9 o'clock. That's great. How great. How wonderful. Nice. Got me on Twitch. Good. Yeah, like it doesn't say I have any viewers. But I think that's just because Restream is slow with its thing, so I don't have any alcohol here. It's working on YouTube as well. It's just not like it's working on both. It's just the chat thing takes a while to update, so. Oh my goodness gracious. No, I just have this open because I had to set up a thumbnail. You can see here. I was working on stuff, and I've just like not like actually closed anything. So, oh, I probably should be hanging out in the Discord like I said I would be, huh? I'll just go in there. There. Oh, you know what? Is this set? User settings. Voice activity. Okay. Test. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Is it just? I forget if Discord automatically saves. I guess it does. Escape. What? Yep. Okay. Cool. So if anyone comes to hang out, whatever, you can mute whatever you're watching. The Patreon logo is easier, but I think the new Patreon logo is real boring.
Hello.
Hello.
Let me put my headphones on. I'm allowed to come in here, right?
No. Get out. You're not allowed.
I have sweet tart.
Only people without the letter A in their name are allowed in here.
But
except for me. I'm okay. I'm the only A. I'm an A plus. I don't know where this joke is going. I'm just kind of rambling. So we're just kind of hanging out.
My headset. Let me get the video going so I can see what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm not really talking about anything. I've got I've got Animate open, but I'm not doing anything in it. I can see. Yeah, I've got.
So I checked out the new tweeting a little bit today. Didn't try it, just looked at it, and I do see where the
You mean the easing?
The easing. Sorry, yeah. I do see where the negative 100, positive 100 comes from. So I'm glad that's still there.
Yeah, they still have the
I'm
old.
really happy we have. Yeah.
It's just under linear.
I'm really happy we have bounce now.
Well, it's just a bunch of presets, really. Like you could have done bounce yourself, but now they have it like now
correct,
it's like
correct, but it's much easier now. Because this is it's all I think it's all like standard stuff. Like this, they're standard sort of easy things like this for other stuff. Because it's all math. That's why one of them is like quadratic.
Yeah, well, which is fine. I mean, it's one of those things. I just wish that you could save your own presets. That's the big thing, because it's like I probably should open up a new file and not mess around with.
Oh, I'm now Fedoro Merc.
What? Oh, Merc. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, I'm gonna close this stuff so I'm not like accidentally messing around with things. Okay.
Oh, so there was at least one place where you had a backwards hand.
Good. I don't know why that's good. Whatever.
Classic Casey.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, you know, it's
Hello.
like, you know, I mean, what was it you were saying? Oh, yeah, it's got like that. But see, it's like what a missed opportunity to like. Oh, what the heck? I did a reverse bounce. That's interesting. Oh, it's a bounce ease in. Duh.
Remember, I'm on 20-second delay or so.
Oh, good grief!
But
Is it
yeah,
really
no,
20 seconds?
It's really nice you can do it with shape tweens now. That's amazing.
That is actually really handy. I mean, you could do a lot of these things with shape tunes before, but it was just more complicated. So
well, they didn't have the easy graph, so it comes down to just lots of keyframing, and if you're gonna do that, you might as well just
Well, that's kind of what I mean.
It's so nice, so nice. I can't wait to use it to add a lot of bouncing in.
You really like the bounce option, don't you? I mean, it's not
so much,
bad.
Not bounce. I think it's elastic. It's the one where it goes past it, and then back a little bit. I think that's elastic. It's like an ease out elastic or something like that. Because that's what it is. Or yeah, that's a bounce one. It's that's what it is. It's you want to do a lot of anticipation and reaction, and I think this will help me do it a lot more rather than just trying to finesse it on my own, which is a little tedious. It's not hard; it's just a little tedious.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's. I guess the thing is that this stuff's nice. It's like the camera, right? Because they've got the camera tool now, and it's like, oh, that's cool, that's nice, but it's like it doesn't quite go as far as I would want it to.
They're working on it. They just had an update, I think, fixing up some of the bugs. So
well,
Mark got gifted a lifetime free subscription on Plural's site. Is that a porn website? I bet it's a porn website.
What are you talking about?
Yadios in the Twitch chat.
I don't see. Oh, I see. What am I being sent? Oh, photos. I'll have to look at them later. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. But so we're talking. Yeah, like the camera. By the way, I want to watch the episode live on stream. I'm just kind of giving it some time.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see if anyone else joins like the Discord chat and stuff. I don't know all who's watching. There's got to be a way to like look it up, but the restream chat won't show. I think someone's watching on YouTube. It's all split up because I use Restream, right? So that like broadcasts to multiple platforms at once. Which is fine.
Dios. I do front end mostly. I do more front end on the design side of things. I'm not a designer, but my specialty at where I work right now tends to be on the CSS side because I'm one of the people that knows how to vertically center things, which isn't hard anymore now that we have Flexbox. On YouTube. Still,
someone in Discord asked, or they brought up my I'm looking at something.
Your avatar.
My avatar, looking upset. My YouTube avatar is like, yeah, I need to change my YouTube avatar. I haven't in ages. You know where that one comes from? Is a long time ago. You guys, when we started TuneWorks, I think so this is like three decades ago or something, like a long time ago. You guys were like, yo, you need to change your avatar because you're just using the Newgrounds default, and I was like, I don't want to bother with it. So instead of like,
I don't want to have an online presence.
But you guys were like really adamant about it, right? So what I ended up doing was just redrawing the normal Tankman one, where it's like the default, where like it's just the Tankman on Newgrounds like shrugging, right. Where he's just like, I don't know, and I just like instead put my own avatar over that. So as a joke, because you guys are like, you need to make out your own unique avatar, and I've just never bothered to change it because it's like, yeah, I'm not really like an annoyed, angry sort of person.
Yes, you are.
So it's like it doesn't really fit my personality. I do need to change it, but it's whatever. We'll all live for a little while I work on one. I need to change a lot of my avatars in general because like I've evolved my art style since I made those ones.
You need to make like a Transformers Sona or whatever because you're a mobile.
Oh gosh. Oh, like a plane Sona or a train Sona. Those two things exist.
I'm not surprised.
I could use the one from Twitch. That one's like... That one's kind of old.
You know what I hate about the one from Twitch? You could see the little bit of your keyboard wire in the bottom right corner. And I'm like, no!
Yeah, it's like the 1 pixel. Total Biscuit has that problem too on his, if you look. There's like, it has the hat and there's like 1 pixel of black at the bottom. It's pretty funny. Joseph is also here. He's been trying to say something, I think.
Oh no.
But we keep interrupting him.
Oh no. Oh, hi, Joseph.
I just keep hearing noises from his end. I don't know if he's trying to say stuff.
Well, I put push to talk on.
Oh. I don't have push to talk on because I don't feel like bothering with it.
I need to actually get Joseph to make a new chibi for me with my skunk tail hair, which I don't have right now. But when I get a haircut, I'll probably put it back in.
Oh, I should probably post. It's been so long since I've streamed. I've like forgotten stream etiquette. You know, like I'm like, oh, whoops! I need to like tell people I'm streaming.
Those
Oops.
are your porn browsers.
No, that stuff's all fine. I don't have any of that kind of thing open. But I do need to like post that I'm actually doing stuff. I'll just give them the YouTube link. Whatever.
Well, Mark, you said you want a new chibi. You get 1 chibi free.
I know. I will pay you for a new chibi.
Then all additional chibis, double the price.
Oh, look, you got fan art already.
What?
Look in the Discord.
Oh my gosh, where did this come from? So quickly. How do people draw this stuff so fast?
How much is double of free? Was it free 99 or was it I had a coupon for buy free get free?
Look at this. Where did this come from already? Who drew
somebody
this?
Somebody named Natalie?
I can't see.
You're already more popular than Wonders, Casey.
Wonders has more fan art.
John Payne drew us a very nice full cast artwork a while back.
Well, this is cool. I should show this in the actual screen so people can see it. What am I doing? I'm like looking at this on my other monitor. There we go. That's cool. Oh my god, I love fan art. I love getting fan art for things. It's something, when I was a member of Toonworks still, I would go around like once a week when I was bored, and would just like Google like Wonders of the Universe fan fiction and just see what would come up. There was one adult website that came very close to writing about us. But like
that was actually from that was from Laura, Joseph's friend, and I started talking to her back then too. I haven't talked to her in a while.
Well, no.
She
This
was pretty much doing all that stuff.
Because I showed you guys, and we were like, there was like a forum post on some website where and someone said like, hey, this series is new. I think it's got some potential, But then like no one did anything with it. So, and I was like, it must be the second coming of Christ. Casey's streaming. Yeah, it's been a while. I stopped because, well, I mean, mainly I didn't have, like I was mostly doing like sound effects and writing and things. And it's like, well, I can't really stream this, like, I mean, I could, but it'd be really boring for everybody. And like I wasn't really doing a lot of art, so I was just kind of hanging out. Like, I was still working and stuff, but it's like, what am I going to do with this? So I just kind of stopped, and then there were some points when I was doing artwork, but I just didn't stream, because I was just like, this is hard to deal with right now, and whatever. So, but as we get into episode 2, there'll be more, like, art streaming going on. But, that's still a little ways off, unfortunately.
I'm trying to find that, I wonder if maybe I didn't save in my local thing. I know John Payne made us very nice art.
We're being pointed at.
I know got somewhere.
Yeah, I someone linked, Divine Mac linked this to me. and so I put it up, because I love fan art. I should just save this. Wait, it's already in the Discord. I don't have to, I've already got it saved.
I love the realistic proportions. Actually, it's cool to see Cascara as like really
like an
muscly,
actual person,
really muscly,
and not just like a bunch of geometric shapes.
looks like a Zarya a little bit, like the body type.
And the haircut.
Well, it's funny because like people go like, "I really like your art style," and I'm like, I just can't really draw, so like this is what I do.
Unless it's clouds.
Well, so I can draw, but I'm definitely best with like landscapes and such. But when it comes to like animating things, it's like, well, I'm like, you know, sticking to like very geometric sorts of shapes and styles just keeps it easy to deal with. So I try to work with limitations quite a lot in that sense. It's interesting because with Wonders, I would do a lot of shading and stuff, right? We'd have like a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of lighting and whatnot in Toll of the Lost as well, but with Wonders, we'd do like a lot of cell shading on all the characters and everything. And that was one thing in Toll of the Lost where I was like, well, I'm gonna try to see if I can get away with like no shading, like at all, and just leave everything up to like lighting and light sources and stuff. So that's interesting. And I started doing that automatically after a while. I probably should pull up examples, you know. Let's see if I can find something good. I've got like so many folders full of artwork where I just like take screenshots of everything. Did you see? So I've got it up on the screen right now. You guys will see it in a minute. But like this horizon of the mountains when they're at the top of the tower is really funny because like I drew this based on the Rocky Mountains. Crink Dink, the first video is uploaded. Yeah, it's listed in the channel. We can get a link though. But, so, I drew this picture based on, like, the Rocky Mountains, right? And, I was like, oh, okay, sure, like, I googled up some photos of it, whatever. And then, like, I stumbled across, like, an advertising firm or something on Facebook that was using a picture of the Rocky Mountains at sunset.
Oh, yeah.
And it looked exactly like this. Like, it's just, like, photorealistic. And it's like, oh, whoops, you know, like, it's like nature's infringing on my copyright. What do I do? And I was hoping that, like, nobody would, I need to go do not disturb on Skype. I apologize if people have been hearing it. So I'm getting distracted. But yeah, no, it just looks exactly like it. And it's like, what do I do about this? I actually have that picture somewhere of that example. Let me find it, and you guys can see.
Yeah, I think you put it on the Facebooks.
Yeah, I have the actual picture in my folder somewhere.
I remember there's this artist, I don't know his name or anything, but he does like really stylized backgrounds. If you ever seen the game Firewatch, like it's kind of based on that. But he did this picture of a mountain or something for a Borderlands to like the instruction manual or something. And
sorry, all the typing
like,
that's loud.
And then it's some like advertisement. Someone basically just ripped off the same style, like almost exactly the same, but like just a different mountain. And he was able to sue like a company who basically ripped off his artwork. And,
oh my goodness!
get some money off it,
I found the picture, by the way. Check this out. So the one on the left is obviously mine, and then the one on the right is the photo. And I didn't even base it on this photo, right? Like I said, I googled up some pictures of like the Rocky Mountains just to kind of get the colors right and stuff. Like, oh, you know, like what's the sunset look like? Because I tried drawing it without a reference at first, and like it didn't look right to me. So then I googled it up and was like, oh, okay, here we go. And then I went from there. But yeah, like. I'm just like, oh no, here's this picture, and it's like exactly the same. I mean, it's not exactly the same, you can tell, right? But it's
honestly, honestly, you should see if you can get a job doing like art, like landscape art for stuff.
I mean, maybe. It's you know, it's really funny because on when I talk to other animators, you know, people on like YouTube and stuff, the one thing that everyone seems to be really short on is like background art. Everybody hates doing background art. They're like, oh, I'll draw a house. Ugh, you know? And I'm just like, man, that's like the one thing I'm good at.
Oh, you're good at more things.
Well,
it's just the one thing you're best at.
Well, it's like
if it takes place in the sky and it's big.
Yeah, speaking of clouds, there's some really good clouds in this. It's funny because
the one you have the perspective that pans up, right at the end of the
picture.
climax.
I think I know what you're talking about. You mean the beginning?
Yeah.
Or
no,
yeah.
No, at the end of the climax. Pans up. It's no spoilers, but you see the thing in the sky.
I'll find the picture, but yeah.
Right. No, that is a fan. The clouds are beautiful.
One.
The colors are beautiful. The perspective is great for a camera pan. It is wonderful. It's probably my favorite piece of art you've done.
It's this picture here. You mean, right?
I will see in like 10 seconds.
Okay. But yeah, it's like it's funny because like when I did this, it was one of those moments where I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I already had like the other mountain horizon shots for the colors anyway, so I was able to just kind of eyedropper them in. And I remember I did a trick where I like just drew a bunch of circles and then like made them different perspectives and just drew the clouds along that. But it's like it was just no, like usually I'll work by trial and error, right? I was like, oh, I kind of know what I want to do here.
I don't see it on the screen yet. I don't know if it's really further behind.
You might be really far behind, yeah.
It must be. Let me try. I'm gonna try reloading this page.
I think I know which one you're talking about, but yeah. It I just dove into it like it was just it was just not a problem. Like I said, usually I'll be kind of like, oh, I don't know. Like remember when I was doing the opening credits and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just let's put some gears here. Here's some planets. I don't know. And it just all kind of worked out.
The fact that this works really, really well with the camera pan, because it's what you do for a camera pan in a 2D thing.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
On top of that, like the color is perfect. It really goes from that blue to the orange and yellows, and then because it's a circle at the top, the object in the sky that was spoilers is centered there, and it's a perfect shot, honestly, in my opinion.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, don't try to top it, because you never will.
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, it's a little bit of spoilers. I talk about it all the time, but episode 2 involves a train, like, that goes through a canyon. And it's like, I can't wait to do all the stuff there, where they're like, oh, it's a desert railroad, and all the rock formations and things like that will be a lot of fun. Plus, too, it's like, I like drawing machinery and, like, pipes and stuff like that,
yeah.
So... it's just one of those things. I still
dislike that one shot in the intro that has the long poles on the end of the spinning around the.
They're just gonna bother you forever. It's like the trees not being the right height, and I like intentionally waited until the very end to fix it, just so that you'd be driven nuts by it forever. It's like I'm gonna get to him.
To me, that's a legitimate criticism thing for that. That is the weakest part of the intro, because it just everything feels really good except that comes around, and because those long pipes are spinning, it's just like it takes me right out of that moment, and it doesn't really matter that much, but it's just like it's just that one thing that prevents it from just being like perfect.
Well, it's one of those things where like I sort of have plans to go back and redo parts of that.
Yeah.
So it's not terrible. It's just like I kind of just had to get through it. And it's like whatever, once I know what I'm doing,
It's weak because it's physically feels wrong.
Oh.
The physics of it are wrong, because you can't something spinning that fast feels weird. If you didn't make them spin, or you got rid of the long pipes and just had the rings go by, probably would have looked great, or even just shorten it. But it's just like physically, and I'm just someone who notices physics a lot when I'm doing this kind of stuff. It just irks me.
What are the pictures?
Most people aren't going to see that.
Well, so before we actually stream the episode and all that, I've got like loads of old art that I drew for this that just never got used. There's like this one. I forget why I drew this. So this is interesting because I think I wanted to draw like a great library sort of place. And this is nowhere in the episode. This is probably going to end up being in a future episode, this location. At one point, this was going to be the council room at the beginning. I don't want to give a lot of spoilers. I'm sure people have seen the episode if they're in the live stream, but we'll watch it in a bit anyway. But this was originally going to be the council room at one point. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. But then I tried drawing the angles I wanted to use, and I couldn't get it to look right. And it was really annoying me, so I just kind of stripped it down to something much more simple. But I've always really... This is like one of the earliest things I drew. You can see like a really tiny Valderos and Cascara standing on this ledge for like a size comparison. And I don't know, it's just... There's also... let's see... Well, that was the thing. This was at one point. This was also going to be Eternius's chamber, but then I didn't use it for that either. So,
you know what? Every time I look at this, I can help but think from like the first X-Men movie, Dr. Xavier's like mind chamber.
At one point, I actually did the math and figured out how big this chamber is and how many books you could fit into it. Just for fun.
Are they normal sized? Are they normal sized books, or are they like dragon sized books like you had in the episode?
Well, this would be I actually calculated out for what the size of, like, how many books you'd be able to fit into this room for normal-sized books. And I forget how many it was, because I was like, I wonder how many you could fit. And I came up with some number, and I thought, like, oh, this must be, like, the biggest library, if this was on Earth, right? And I was wrong. It turns out that, I think it's the Library of Congress in the United States, could fit, like, 10 times the number of books in it. Although they cheat because like they consider like documents to be like, so they'll just like put a piece of paper on the shelf. And it's like, oh, so it's kind of cheating. Plus, the other surprising thing is that there's not. This is just one big round cylindrical room, right? So there's actually not that much surface space is the thing to put books on. Whereas, like, you know, a proper library, you have like hallways and passages and, you know, and like rows of shelves and stuff. So. No, man, that's me. Sorry.
That he has it. I bet he has it. Like alphabetical, and then he gets a new book, and it won't fit on the shelf. So he's gotta like move every shelf, and then that shelf overflows to the next one. He's gotta like rearrange the whole section.
I was
just
playing.
He gets one new book.
I was playing Overwatch with a friend. Like, leading up till when I had to do this stuff.
Turn it off, Casey.
Well, it just makes noise. It's like, if I put myself on Do Not Disturb, I think it still makes noise.
Close the program.
I've got friends I'm talking to on there, so whatever. So here's another old picture. Oh, by the way, when I did the math on that room, I also worked out that it would take you 10 minutes to walk across the entire thing. From one end to the other, so it's just insane. I figured out the volume too, and I compared it to other buildings. It was so long ago, I don't remember. Where's some other? Here's one. Another really old picture. I actually have some other stuff of this, like, work in progress. This was originally going to be where C. Devant was located until I changed it.
C. Devant?
C. Devant, yeah, it's the name of the city at the beginning. Awkward silence. Where is it? It's not here.
So we gotta look at the stupid black box while you're waiting on stuff.
I'm sorry. Well, if you were in the chat room, or if you were listening to me on the stream.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
I can't find it. It should be under work in progress, but I can't find it. Well, I have a version where there's like a building sitting on this cliff, but it's like not colored in. It's just like an outline. So I apologize, but yeah, like this was originally because I was thinking like, oh, dragons, they would live in like a cliffside, like on top of a mountain. But then I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try to do something a little bit more original, and I put it on the ocean side, which ultimately makes more sense. Because there are
dragons are ocean dwellers.
Yeah, you have. Well, there are like some types of dragons are aquatic. So
you're basically making a dragon version of Waterworld.
Well, it's also like the other goofy thing. Like, I actually can pull it up, the actual picture of C. Devant that I have, and I can go over it. It's funny. I have a encyclopedia on Google Docs, right? I write down anytime I have like any ideas about lore and stuff like that. I write it down to keep everything consistent.
Right. So what is the main export of C. Devant then?
Well, it depends. Well, because for dragons, it's just like a temple hub, right? Like, this is where they gather their leadership. It's like the UN.
But how does the economy of the city work? It's got to have an economy.
Well, the thing is that for dragons, it's not necessarily a city. Like I said, it's just more like a temple city. Like, it's like, oh, we need to get the flights together to make a decision. So we're gonna go. They're all gathered in this one place, and they have some places where they can live that are essentially like hotels or whatever plugged into the walls. Humans do live there, however. I'm trying to find the picture. so I can talk.
I
more
imagine these
about this.
dragons, like when you say city, there's not like hundreds of them. There's probably like a small community, right?
Yeah, and they don't stay there permanently either. And I try to get this stuff across. Here we go. I try to get this stuff across visually because I don't really have a lot of time to like really get into it. But
So you said there's people living there.
Well, yeah, because like I've got the picture up now, but
We're gonna find more. We're gonna find out more about that later. Or...
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like there's basically nothing in episode 1 where I'm just like, this goes away, we never hear about it again. Like I don't know. I get way too much into the lore. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about but didn't get the chance to, because it needs to be quick. It needs to get it needs to move from one thing to the next pretty fast. But it's like we're talking visual storytelling here. You've got Cedavant, which has got like the very obvious like this cliffside here where you've got like these little alcoves where dragons can roost. There's not very many though, which is intentional. Like I said, this is just kind of like a temple that they go to be like, oh, this is where we're going to store some of our information and stuff. But, it's like I'm trying to think of like a good example of this, because we have stuff like this in real life where it's like, oh, this is kind of where we work, and, it's whatever. I guess you could say it's kind of like the Vatican, I guess. I don't know. But, like, you have...
It's the library at a college.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody goes there to study.
But you do have human settlements cropped up all over it, right? Like you've got this this area down here where there's like, if I can zoom it in, I can. Yeah, there we go. Where it's like you've got like docks set up. Look at the detail on it. It's been a long time since I've looked at this image this close, but like look at the friggin' detail here.
Did you write a Made in China on it like you did on the Wonders?
No. But you've got all these places where it's like you've got very human sorts of buildings set up, like they're much more primitive, they're much more, it's like they're much more rudimentary. But in the encyclopedia I wrote for this place, the entry for it, the idea is that it's mostly dragon enthusiasts that come to live here, where it's like, oh, it's like these
Dragon
are people
cosplayers.
It's like these are people who there's like religions sprung up around them. It's like I don't know what you would call it. Like I don't want to say like cults and stuff.
Some of those bricks on the base of that bridge are bigger than the entire housing structures on the docks.
So do the dragons just not take notice of them?
They're just like, whatever. Yeah, that's kind of the case. Where it's like, they live here, but they're not really causing a problem. We can use them for things, whatever. They don't really mind it.
If they need a midnight snack.
There's a lot of like old ruined sorts of buildings like tucked into the cliffside.
There's actually a lot of. That's a pretty big. That's a pretty big town. I mean, there's a lot of buildings there. That's
one thing I wanted to do with this, where it was like, because when we would do stuff on Wonders. Like, remember when I drew, like, the Wonders ship, and it's, like, under that bubble? It's like, oh, this is whole city. But, like, it makes no sense. And it's like, that was the one thing here where it's like, I want to make this, like, an actual city.
Well, I'm just in the context that some fanatic dragon worshippers would start a settlement at the base of this thing. Like, I wouldn't have expected it to be as big as, like... a city surrounding a castle or a fort.
Well, that's kind of how it starts, because I write about this. That's how it starts, where you have like these sorts of religious things cropping up, but then like at the same time it ends up just becoming kind of a hub, because you've got that going on where they're trading like, oh look, we've got dragon scales that they've shed, we can sell these. It's true, like a rare thing. Yeah. And then like on top of that it becomes like a port hub, so it's like. You just get people moving there, and then it's a very central location on the planet that they live on, and it's
bazaar and
yeah. You have like a central culture built up around the dragons, but everything else.
Surprised there isn't like a big like dragon statue somewhere.
I don't. Yeah, I guess
dragon statues. They have actual dragons.
It's a good point, but yeah, I can imagine a lot of people come here. It's like, I want to see dragons, so. And I kind of get into that a little bit.
How often are the dragons there? Like, or is it just like once every few years? Like, they might have a meeting there.
I figure there's always like a rotating congregation, if you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, you have like like you have the red dragons, which are sort of like the in the position of leadership, where like they're like the biggest and the bossiest, you know, and they're just kind of like, oh, we rule the
Oh, are
these
you
people.
Planet of the Apesing this?
No.
You're Planet of the Apesing
What
this.
do you mean I'm Planet of the Apesing this? What does that mean?
In Planet of the Apes, the original Planet of the Apes, the different species of apes were different. Were different jobs essentially. With the the chimpanzees were the scientists. Was it the chimps or something? Were the scientists? The orangutans were the.
The orangutans were like the scholars. The chimpanzees were the scientists.
There is a bit of that going on.
Gorillas were like the military.
Because it's like when I got working on this, that was one thing that I really wanted to do, was that I didn't want just all the dragons to be the same. You don't really see a variety at all in episode 1, but like, like for example, there's aquatic dragons. There's there's just all different kinds.
You mean sea serpents?
So I wrote up a big list of like what the different like flights are, as they call them, which is a term I stole from World of Warcraft, but I think it's fitting, so whatever. And sort of like what like how they look physically and sort of what their role is in society and etc. And like I had to come up with like 12 different ones because because in the council room scene at the beginning, there's like, if you were to physically gauge like how many alcoves are in there for like a leader of a flight of dragons to be there, there's like 12 alcoves. So it's like, it's either 11 or 12, I can't remember. And then like so I came up with a bunch of different kinds, and then on top of that, I think I had some help in coming up with different ones, and some of them are more bestial, where it's like they're not intelligent, they're just sort of animals. I was like, oh, what about like two-headed dragons? It's like, well, I don't want to get into like intelligent two-headed animals.
Races?
That would be funny.
Pod races?
The thing is with like two-headed characters, there's like the trope where they argue with one another, and it's like a comedy thing. And I was like, I don't want to do that, because it's like that's like very typical.
There are a few humans that have that are conjoined, that have either two heads or essentially two people with one body.
Yeah. Well, so what I decided to do.
You could probably look up documentaries on those peoples for realistic ideas.
Well, what I decided to do was base it more on reality, right? Where you have species of lizards that occasionally grow second heads, or there's a condition that it's named for, but it happens more often in reptiles than it does in mammals and stuff.
So it's basically diphalia for heads.
It's weird, yeah, but in reptiles, typically it's used like, oh, the other head's like a decoy or whatever, and they just kind of share like a conjoined digestive system.
Goes, look over here.
Well, it's like, okay, so if we have two-headed dragons, what do I do with this? And it's like they're more animal-like.
How to Train Your Dragon, one head emits like a gas, and the other head sparks it, and that's how they breathe their fire.
I know when I was coming up with types, there was like two that I couldn't think of, and then I filled the slots with Japanese dragons and like the wingless, serpent ones.
Oh yeah.
And like they're all furry and everything. And then the last one that I came up with was fairy dragons, which I was afraid was ripping off World of Warcraft again, but no, it's a thing. They come from Dungeons and Dragons, so I'm safe. But like they're like super playful and obnoxious. Yeah, like they're intelligent, but they're like super obnoxious, and everyone hates them. They're always playing tricks on everybody and stuff. It's like, okay, that'll be like the 12th flight, but they'll have been kicked off the council because they can't take it anymore.
They're the council jester.
Yeah. So they're also tiny. They're like the size of cats, like house cats. So, but yeah. So I have the list somewhere. Do they have
cute little antennas?
Oh, probably. I haven't drawn any, this is the thing, but I'm sure I'll get into it.
Can I design the fairy dragon?
I've it's like, I have, this isn't like an episode, right? It's just like a gimmick, so I don't know what I'll do with this idea, but in my head, I have a scene where Valdros has to contend with like a swarm of fairy dragons, and he's just perpetually annoyed. But it's like, I don't know how that'll be built into anything, but it's just a funny, like, visual in my head.
Maybe in the train episode, they have to split up tickets between two rooms, and he's like, well, I get to have the own room because I'm a dragon. Has to share it with other dragons, and it's them.
Hello, Tiana Camacho.
It's basically being stuck next to Dookie and Zico from Lloyd 1.
Here's a set I drew for episode 2 of all things.
Electric Boogaloo.
If you guys remember this one, yeah. When I'd finished episode 1, I sat down and did this. I'm doing it pretty good, Tiana. I'm just going through my art folder and talking about different things that I drew for different reasons. Some of them aren't in the episode, some are. But and we were talking about like some of the lore behind some of the stuff that's in it.
Oh, that is beautiful, man.
This one's all on like
one layer.
No. Wouldn't that be the worst? No, it's on different layers. Like I've got different things, but I drew this is the first scene in episode 2 is where this background is in. I think this is the first background I drew exclusively with the tablet, which you can really tell because like you can see all the itty bitty details just everywhere. Oh, yeah. So
yeah, Casey, you got some comments as Rem is pointing out. You got some comments on the Twitch chat.
Where? Did I miss it? Oh, I should stream the episode. Yeah, I should. I was kind of... I don't want to say I was stalling. I was just kind of going through the pictures and getting swept up in it. I can't find... Oh, you want to see something really funny? Well, okay. We'll tell you what. We'll watch the episode and then we'll continue.
Christ, Casey, get a job as a background artist. God!
I've already seen the episode.
Well, too bad. It's only 12 minutes long. Get over it.
It's almost bedtime.
I gotta pull it up.
Are we allowed to talk during it, or we want us to be quiet?
We should probably be quiet. I think probably everyone's seen it, but whatever. We'll just watch it because I said we would watch it. You know, why not? We'll live stream it just for fun. All right.
So you want us to shut up?
Sure. You can like laugh and stuff if you want.
Laugh at it or laugh with
it? Let me turn off the chat room so that it doesn't
interfere.
Patreon text. No, where is it? Restream chat here. Yeah. Well, just so you can see everything, you know. I guess we'll have this bar at the bottom, but whatever. If you want to watch this in full HD without crap on the screen, get out of here. What am I doing here? Hold on. Let me just sign out of like all this junk. Exit Steam. Ha ha ha. Take that. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, you can just watch it on the thing. We'll watch it together here. So here we go.
Valderos of the Paracronix Clutch, the last of 3. You are judged today before the Council of the Faceless. You are permitted to offer a statement in defense of your crimes.
You know, honestly, I do really like your use of shadows here. Although, you do realize I can recognize all of your voices.
This is no time for your levity, whelp. Anyone else would be trialed for execution.
He isn't anyone else, Arbiter. We don't kill our own kind.
The accused can no longer be trusted around our own kind.
Hold on a tick. Para? Don't tell me you're attending this.
This council will remain anonymous and respected, whelp.
Well, fine. Then I'll just go on pretending that I don't know my own brother.
Silence!
Arbiter, I know this is unprecedented, but what about the option of exile?
Exile?
Yeah, exile? What, are you coming to my rescue, Para?
Personal relations aside, Arbiter, you are the only one among the council who wants to see him executed.
So, this is the judgment of the council then? Already made up your minds, have you? Very well. Though exile will not stop him, I am not about to begin in tarnishing our traditions. You will face only banishment, Valderos, but you trespass back into our lands from now into eternity. I will have no choice but to revoke that privilege. May the outside world be as kind.
This the place?
Of course this is the place. This map cost me my best compass.
Well, let's just hope it actually pays out this time.
Oh, come now, Cascara. Are you brandishing your fell doubts at me? Need I remind you of my countless escapades, enduring charm, and the... Come on, you... These doors have presented our first challenge. Hangout, however, prepare to relinquish your overweight loot to me, Louis Legrand!
Yeah, just piles of treasure in here.
I don't pay you for sarcasm.
Oh, you pay me for intelligent conversation?
I'm sure you'll warm up to this place eventually. Why, just look at this. What could it do? Why is it here? Oh, the walls are just sweating with mystery.
Didn't you say this was the lair of a dragon?
Just look, old rumor. Louis Legrand does not believe in silly rumors. Come, we must explore the tower. Cascara, something down this hall is saying my name incorrectly.
Still no piles of gold?
Foolish humans. I'm worth far more than mere mortal currency. I've beheld secrets beyond your wildest dreams.
Aha! Let it never be known that Louis Legrand never turned down a treasure that proclaims its own worth.
Careful!
Wherefore, my sweet Cascara? Careful is one of my various middle names, right between dashing and handsome.
Don't open that book.
What? Who goes there?
You'll find my name is none of your concern. Hello, didn't see you there. Nice axe. I prefer swords myself, but...
You know what's great about decapitated heads? They don't talk.
Right. Good point.
The blonde one is the keeper of the tower. Do not trust his lies.
Keeper of the tower? What are you, some kind of wizard?
Good grief, no! I mean, sure, I get it. Spooky tower, robed man, books everywhere, but seriously, and I mean seriously, those are certainly not the rumors I've taken great care spreading about this region whatsoever.
Oh, so are you the dragon of the tower then?
Well, what else could I possibly be?
I don't know. The tower looks abandoned.
Don't judge my living sensibilities.
I hate to be the, how do you say, burdening distraction here, but I'm still wanting to know if I should open this book or not.
Trust me, parting the pages of that book is likely the last thing you want.
How do you know anything about what we want?
Oh, please, how could I not? You're adventurers. Plundering is practically your job description. You've even got a man wearing a feather hat. No offense, by the way, I do love that hat.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, well, how do you plan to stop us, dragon? You gonna breathe fire on us?
Dragons don't breathe fire, you dolt. They exhale it, occasionally.
Open the book.
You fools, no!
Yes, I can see again. Oh, how the world has grown.
Mon Dieu! What is it?
He's not an it. Please, that is the soul of a slain prophet trapped in a book. Thank you very much.
If he's sealed in a book, then how is he dangerous?
Oh, he's not really. It's just that this tower is enchanted to implode if anyone tries to open him.
What?
I tried to warn you.
Why should we have trusted you?
Why would you have trusted a talking book?
In the final words of my father's father, Saturn!
Where are you going?
The entrance.
No, 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 follow me.
Who put you in charge? Who the hell are you anyway?
I've told you, I'm Valderos, from the ancient city of Cedavant. I'm 730 years old, and today, I'm the man who's going to save your lives. Have you got a problem with that?
Yeah, it sounds made up.
Oh, come on!
Prove you're a dragon and I'll trust you.
I can't! I need sufficient room.
Yeah, see? Made up.
Fine, have it your way.
Capricious is also one of my middle names.
Ugh. This is your way out?
It's a work in progress.
Cornered are we, Valderos? Or are you finally going to shed this illusion?
We talked about this, Eternius. Nobody likes a vengeful, grumpy eyeball.
What? Why? What are you doing?
I told you I need room.
You still expect...
You're not a wizard. You're a wizard lizard!
I'm not a wizard of any kind! Just climb on! That was my home, you blithering haggards!
What? He's a dragon!
Yay! It's my credit, yay! I muted myself. In your chair. So what's your favorite part of the episode? No, Joseph's favorite part. Yeah, your favorite part. All right, what's your favorite part? Casey, they can't hear you on the stream.
Yeah, I guess it helps. Look, that happens all the time.
Put your pants on, Casey. What are you doing? Oh.
I forgot I was muted. Mark was asking me what my favorite part of the episode was. It's hard to say. Because there's things I like for different reasons. I like the flight stuff at the end of the clouds. I think is really glorious. I think the music really adds to that as well.
Yeah.
Like I've described it as glorious, but it's mostly because I like that particular motif. It's called the sea theme in particular, but it's just so free and wonderful feeling, and I love it. But like the parts that I think that managed to really stand out the strongest is the scene where Eternius comes out of the book, and the one where Valderos gives his Doctor Who ripoff speech. Are the two that I think stands out the most to me.
What irks me about that Doctor Who speech is the pan. Like if I were doing that dolly in shot, I would make it like I'd go back and like redo it like 6-7 times until I got it like it was an actual thing. Because I'm watching like the background is moving so fast and he's not moving. It's like things that I pick up on because I'm like super attuned to moving the camera realistically.
Oh.
So it's just like it's like Otherwise, good. What's your least favorite? What do you hate?
The part that bothers me the most. No one complains about this, by the way. Like no one has ever brought it up. I feel like I ought to be able to find this specific shot here. I'll just bring it up. It's near the very end, and I was like in a great big hurry. So like I was like, I just gotta get it done, and I probably could have gone back and fixed this and all the time it took to get the music done, but I just didn't because I just kind of assumed I wouldn't have time, and I was focused on other things. But towards the end when he's flying around, the first flight shot looks really good, where he like swoops towards the camera going from right to left, but then like when he stops, his like legs are really tiny, and then like when he lands, it just looks really weird to me. Let me scroll over and find it.
This is what happens when your attitude towards doing things is it's fine.
Well, like in my defense,
that is why you have hands that are wrong, and Cascara's scar probably flips around a couple times.
This shot bothers me. Like it works and no one's complained about it, but it just looks really weird. I'm just like and I don't like it. Like I need whenever I draw Valderos again in the future, I need to do his claws differently.
We only see Valderos's full body like twice, and one of them is so quick. This is the longest we see, and it's only like 5 seconds. I'm more like bothered by the fact that he just kind of like tosses the Eternius' book off, and like nothing happens, and there's like no sound effect, and it's
there is actually a sound effect though. That's the funny thing. It's just buried under everything else that's going on. So. That's
weird because I heard Cascara pick up her axe, but I didn't hear the book land.
It's because the book landing is a much more bassy sound, and it's buried under the music. This is something that I learned with this episode, is that like a lot of those sounds, like room tone, because I have a lot of sounds where they're like where they're indoors, where you hear like a room tone in it, or like it all just gets buried by the music in particular, where it's like you're not going to hear it because it's just such a deep sound. And the sound of the book falling is a low-pitched noise versus Cascara moving around is a much higher-pitched noise, and that's why you're able to hear it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, like, look, it's fun attitude. Like, it's weird, because a lot of the things that people pick up on, where they're like, oh, this looks weird, or whatever, or this is bad, are things that, like... Because there's stuff where I just took very obvious shortcuts, where I was like, oh, whatever, just get this done. But no one talks about them, like, they just don't care. But there's things where...
Like them landing here, this is a functional shot. It's like, you just need to see them get off him, and that's all it is. So it's not really memorable. So if something's wrong with it, you're not really going to notice it.
But that's the goofy thing with this, though, is that when I did this scene, this shot, I was like, whatever. Like, that was my take, where I was just like, whatever, just get it done, you know?
It's fine.
But it ends up being okay. So it's like completely arbitrary what ends up being like lazy looking and what isn't. And I don't really know how to figure it out a lot of the time. Like, you just kind of got to wing it and get through it.
That's why I do a lot of close-up shots. A, because it's quicker and easier. B, because if you don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's like the
I wasn't sure what to do with his legs here.
He cut to the part where, like, in episode 5 of Wonders, Quentin walks off of that conveyor belt Like I had to do that.
Yeah.
But it's a functional thing, and it sets up the next shots and reestablishes the line of action and everything. Although if you go back and you watch that shot and you look at what irks me about that one is Nova's legs sort of cross. I didn't keep the top of the thighs in with the position where her hips were, so they kind of like flip sides a bit.
See, like right here, this looks okay, but then like you go a little further and his legs are like really itty bitty, and it looks really funny. Also, no one else has brought this up, but Kaskar and Louis aren't riding on his back during these flight scenes.
Yeah.
No one's ever said anything about it yet.
Did I mention that while you were doing it? Like, don't forget to add blah.
Well, the thing was, what?
I did notice it when you were showing it just now.
Well, the thing is, it goes by really quick, and if I had added a Louis, like a tiny Louis and Kaskar and an Eternius to it, it would have looked strange. It's like, what's that contrasting blue blob, sitting on his back?
You just put like a dark orange blob on there, and that's really all you need to do.
Yeah, but at that point, then it's like, what's the point, really? Because it's like, it's just going to blend in so much that it won't matter.
One thing that bothers me about this scene is that when he flies off into the distance, it lingers on the shot for a couple seconds. It's like 2 seconds too long. It's like it didn't need to linger that long.
I can't remember why we decided to do that either.
You were probably doing like a music thing, or maybe you were planning like a fade out or something.
Maybe because the music stuff came up later. Like we didn't sit there going like, oh, we need to make sure that this lasts this many seconds for music, because we didn't really have any of it written. So there was some weird reason I did it, and I'm not sure. This shot's pretty cool, where it does the tracking shot on the back. This is a place where I utilized the actual camera tool, where like I animated it.
Yeah.
Can I hide that layer? I can't. I could delete that layer temporarily. Yeah, I can just turn it off, I think, if it'll let me.
It doesn't matter. You've already exported it. God.
Well, it won't. I was like, you could, like, in theory, you can just turn the camera off. Oh, Tiana's headed out. Have a good one. Bye,
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu? What? What?
You said it was Keanu?
No, Tiana Camacho.
Oh, well, I'm not on the
she's on the YouTube. Oh, I forgot to turn the restream chat back on. Anyways.
Oh yeah.
So like, I animated this scene, right? And you can kind of see on the timeline here. I've got it set up, and I wish if I just do this and clear it, it might work. Oh.
You can delete it. You can't. Or you can.
Well, it messed it all up anyway, but. You can't really tell, but it's like I animated the scene first, and then I put the camera over the top of it, and then just like kept the camera parallel with his back, so that like the background moves around instead.
Right.
Yeah, so it gives the impression of it being like a tracking shot, or not tracking.
I remember back in the day we had like a plugin, like an action strip that kind of fit the camera like that.
Developed by Adam Phillips.
Someone had. That's who it was. It was Adam Phillips.
It was the Bitey Breckenwood guy. He streams too, actually, on the weekends. Oh, I have messages on Discord.
Devin Mack is typing.
I just happened to look. Yeah, the person who did the fan art, Natalie, wanted Mac to let me know that they were in the chat room, and I didn't know.
Oh, Tiana did the voice of Solaris in that the short that we had didn't finish up, unfortunately.
Which I have to get back in contact with.
Whoops.
Solaris back.
Man, I feel bad. There's all these people that have been trying to get a hold of me, and I've not been paying any attention.
It's just like yesterday when you didn't release anything and we didn't know what happened.
Well, I fell asleep in my chair. Like, I was waiting.
We thought your house was taken over by, like, a sinkhole or something.
Why is it that whenever, like, an internet person disappears for, like, all of, like, 2 hours, everyone's like, they must have died? Like, that's always, like, the first thing everyone goes to.
To be fair, Casey, you've disappeared before.
Yeah. Let's see... I gotta invite Miranda. I don't know if she'll actually join, but like, what? Use the copy button. All right, fine. She was asking, and I didn't notice.
Do you still have Gherkinman's version of Cascara when you were first developing?
Oh, I do. Yeah. So I was gonna
Yeah.
show this a lot of this stuff because like the old versions of the characters that are like really generic and bad. Hold on. Well, they are like I'll find it
As
for you.
opposed to these new ones, which are generic but good.
Well, I'll show you what I mean, right?
I
So it's
kid,
like let me bring
I
up.
kid.
Oh, that's that's episode 2 version of Valderos. Where's version 1? Here it is. Because I made some edits to them and stuff, but it's like you have Valderos here.
I really hope you flesh out Cascara a little more because there's not enough for her to kind of like she's got to play like the straight man character to Louis' comic relief, straight woman character I should say, but it's like as
You mean as a character,
it makes
not
her seem
yeah.
a little as a character, yeah.
Yeah,
it makes her seem
it's
little
one of those.
plain. Again, she hasn't done anything yet. It's just an introduction. So I'm hoping you can figure out like a good, unique
here's why.
characterness for her, other than just being a folly to a foil to Louis'
Cascara's,
wackiness.
I kind of went through and like updated all the character models a bit. I didn't really do much to Cascara. I changed her axe up to make it look more like an axe, like a solid object. Because if I can find an older version here, I'm getting off track, but I just wanted to look at this real quick. Like if you compare it to like the older version, where it's just like this weird shape with like notches in it. On the newer version, I made like an actual solid object that like makes sense and centered like the gaps and everything. I think I also I changed the way her gauntlets look so that it's more symmetrical, and I changed her pose. You can kind of tell, like in the old one, her arms and stuff are weird. In the newer one, it's like everything is much more.
Yeah, I think there were like two things that Dan I think was trying to point out to you that you picked up on, and that was A, silhouettes.
Yeah.
And B, weight. So she feels stronger that she can hold that axe.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is the newer version here, but yeah, it's like it's just everything is much more proportioned and stuff, whereas the older version it's just not. In the episode, you don't notice these things as much because I kind of edited on the fly. But I just wanted to make sure my default model made more sense. It's just like Valderos's clothes get more elaborate in episode 2 because I was like, okay, I know what I can get away with now. Whereas like, because he was really simple, like where it's like everything is like just one solid color, and his shirt is just a blue. And it's like you compare him to characters like Sika in episode 2, who's spoilers alert, it's another character.
But they didn't bring his clothes with him.
Actually, that's not even the most recent version of Sika. Where is it?
He has a dragon on his little.
Yep.
What's the button thing called?
This
Oh, it's
clasp?
Missy.
Hold on, I'm trying to get the character.
Sika is basically a steampunk Missy.
The character neutral here looks weird because like I just have everything in a neutral position so I can edit it easier. I don't have to like pull it out of like a special version. But yeah, like that's when I drew her, I was like, oh, this character's really detailed compared to the other ones. So I kind of had to go through and fix up a lot of things to make them all match. So that's why I have this version of Valderos where it's like his robes look heavier and there's more shapes and stuff on it. Like his collar like makes more sense. Like it looks like he's actually wearing robes and it's not just like a weird like it's just shapes. Like the button makes more sense. Like because in the original it's like he's got this button clasp and it's like not really attached to anything. And in this version, it's like actually attached to his collar, like it's all buttoned together. So yep, it all makes sense. But yeah, what was I right? So old versions of the characters, the old embarrassing versions of the characters. I like showing these off because I think they're really funny. I gotta find them though. Yeah, here's old Valderos. Look how grumpy he looks in this. And it's really funny because like he can't look anything but grumpy with this character model.
But grumpy.
But yeah, it's like the colors are way.
He looks like he's gonna yell at his mom for taking away his weed.
Yeah, his hair is like much more of a mess. Like that's one thing because like his hair is supposed to be a mess, but it's like.
Yeah. Now he's Anakin Skywalkering.
Yeah.
You did, Chris. You missed the episode.
Chris did miss the episode, but that's okay.
But it's still on the YouTubes.
Yeah, you can always watch it. We didn't. You can join the Discord chat too if you want. We're all hanging out in the Discords. But yeah, like it. You know, his hands are just like oven mitts. One of the funny things with his clothes here too. It's like I had his robes with like all these pockets on it, which I like. I like the pockets. But it's like, well, you can't really do like bone tools and shape tweens with things like that attached to it. It's gonna just break everything. So I had to get rid of them. I stripped down a lot of the complexity, made the colors much more saturated and vibrant, you know. Actually gave it a color scheme, actually gave it a proper silhouette, you know, and then that's when you end up with... I gotta find it. Again. Well, whatever. You know what he looks like. This is funny. I was attempting different hairstyles, and I almost went with this, which would have been very funny. I don't know what I was thinking. You'll see it in a second.
I'll see it in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, well, because I was thinking silhouettes, you know. I was like, oh, it's a strong silhouette, and I tried this, and it's like, oh, that works as a silhouette, but it looks insane.
But he looks like if Johnny Bravo was a shark.
But that was like that was a version of him. I gotta find, where is it? Do I have? No, it's somewhere else. I'll go find it in a bit. But yeah, like the old versions of Louis were back when I spelled his name Lewis and not Louis, which is the proper. Like, look at this. Oh my goodness.
I have joined the stream.
Oh.
Hey, it's Crispo.
How's my audio?
Crispo is the voice. Crispo is the voice of 6 different clouds in this episode.
Nice.
He's just like whoosh, you know.
I thought it was strange that you wanted me to blow into the mic those times.
You were blowing Mike? What?
Look at this version of Louis. Just looks just ridiculous. I don't know what. Again, it's like, oh, like I was trying to make something work, but you know, no. And then like there's even another version of him here where his face is like all fat.
How long ago was this model made?
That was one of the early ones.
Not like the earlier one, not the one where he has the sword.
Long time ago.
Oh
like
my
the
god!
date,
Look at that.
the
He's
date
got
on
the mumps in this shot.
The date on the picture is August 4th, 2016. But it was I made that before that because I at some point I organized all my folders and
Miranda has a question in the Discord. She
Oh.
asked, why did you outline the teeth?
Well, in these old ones, I don't know actually, because with the newer character models, I don't. Let's see if I can find. I could just open up the character folder or the thing.
The way that the older one looks, the way that he has the silhouette, I was reminded of the artwork you would do for your Let's Plays, like Thief and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Are you sure there's no like hard drive somewhere that has that Slender Man video? Because that one's still the best. You said you deleted it, and I'm
through the forest. I'm gonna eat a gorgeous.
Look at this version of Louis here. Like, look how much better he looks. after I went back, I was like, I need to do this.
I'm still holding out that someone out there has saved that file, and we can watch it again because that was funny.
No, I guess the teeth are still outlined here. They're not supposed to be. I need to go and fix some of these mouths, I guess. Because, like...
I'm guessing it's because the mouth is a separate symbol and not like what we've ended up doing in Wonders and Lloyd, which is that we attach, or Joseph, I should say, drew it to attach the teeth or the mouth to the jaw.
I do that too.
Well,
Chris does it too, correct.
What I do
Katie isn't doing that yet.
Well, what I've done here is so like instead of just outlining it, I did like, you know, just custom sorts of designs instead of just having it just straight up outlines, and it ends up looking a lot better. But you know, for some reason that's not across the board. I need to go through and actually fix that in the other ones. What let's see. I need to keep the Discord open.
So which
Yeah,
channel?
look at his eyes. They're like, yeah.
Channel is your video on?
Oh, it's on mine. Let me.
The Casey Mobile. The Casey.
The Casey
Mobile?
Mobile.
Yeah. There was a link somewhere. I don't know.
That just means that Chris
Found
is
it.
not following.
Found it. Toll of the Lost. Dragons and
Subscribe.
Dungeons.
Subscribe.
Dragons and Dungeons. Episode 2 is called Friendly Fire.
Now, I typed in Casey McDonald, but then underneath yours is something that says Casey Holmes, and it's a pretty lady. I think I'm going to subscribe to that channel instead.
There's a lot of pretty ladies named Casey McDonald, I've discovered.
All of them are porn bots.
Good
oh,
luck.
yeah, I remember you working on this flower in the beginning.
Oh, yep. Long time ago now.
I was there for part of that stream.
What was I doing? Oh, I was showing old versions of the characters. But yeah,
drinking.
So check this out. This is a character that at one point was going to exist. I forget what his... Oh, his name was Leroy Legrand, and he was Louis' brother. And he was an accountant that goes on all their adventures.
Left.
Oh, you left.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and he was an accountant.
Just popped up.
He was an accountant that followed Louis around on all his adventures and like kept all their like, you know, assets
documents?
in order. Yeah, and like I drew him, and eventually like I just got rid of the character and the writing because it was just way too much bloat. I want to bring him back at some point because I think he's funny.
Is this
and
human Slinks?
What's that?
Is this human Slinks?
I guess it kind of is, isn't it? He's got like the visor.
Oh god, this is still when you did like the weird ear shading.
Yeah. But it's funny because I showed this character to Mac, right, Devin Mac, and he's just like, well, you have to keep this character now because I can just hear what his voice sounds like. So I want to bring it back eventually, and he's just concerned about everybody's taxes and stuff. But I'll have to redraw him, obviously.
Or he could be that could be like the spectral face for like a tent called an account tent, and like whenever they go to rest, like it always pesters them about any new income or assets they want to claim.
It's funny because you can see It's funny how you can see like the art style just develop. Like Eternities doesn't change much, but it follows the same. Like this is my original version of him, and I was like, oh, I can make this work. But then like I get to the newer version, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna keep all the lines really clean. I'm gonna
I think his eyelid itself, like the part on the eye, should have a border, just the bottom bit, or like the part that splits open.
Oh, just so that when it's closed, you can see where the border's at.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah, because it feels a little weird.
I think I actually did do that in the when I went back and redid him when I added updates to it. Let's see.
Yet again, this reminds me of like a really old, I want to say like 2006 Stufu 9000 model that we did.
Model.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, that's where Eternities came from. Is someone made a joke
right. But I'm just remembering like the original version of that had the volume thing and the.
Oh yeah.
As a punk rocker, look at that.
Yeah. Well, I did this, and then once I did this, I drew all the original versions of the character models, and then Gurkhaman was like, look, let me show you how it's done, right? And he was talking about like silhouette and stuff, and he did this version of Cascara, and I looked at this and I was like, oh.
I was actually visiting him when he was drawing that. So I was watching him draw it in real time.
Well, the things that I took away from this, so I think with Gurkhaman that he. The way he does stuff, he's really strong with the silhouettes, but like he does get really more exaggerated than I tend to get.
Yeah, he's more cartoony.
Yeah. So like, but the things when I looked at this is like, the things I like about this, right? So for example, her hands, like the way the hands and stuff are layered, makes it like really easy to just like position everything without having to worry about it. And I think that's what led me to saying like, oh wait, I can design all the models in such a way that I don't need to worry about like making things realistically layered, because that's what I was trying to do before, where it's like, oh, you can kind of see like a 3D sense to them, and then I got rid of that and it made it, because I was like, oh, I need to animate this, so, and once I got rid of that, it made it much easier, because like you go from this version of Valderos to I gotta bring it up here.
The way she looks right here, it reminds me a little bit of Steiner from Final Fantasy IX.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Character neutrals. So yeah, you know, I go from that to, you know, this. I mean, like, obviously the colors and stuff is an update. But it's just like, oh, okay, get rid of as much detail as possible. Strip it down to just make everything one solid shape, if possible.
Let the audience fill in the details with their minds.
That's kind of the trick, though, because, like, if you do it this way, then it's like the layering doesn't matter. So, like, if you look at this version, I would have had to keep the shoulders aligned on the arms to make sure that, like, you know, nothing, like, came apart or looked strange. Whereas in this version, the shoulders are completely covered by the collar. You can't even see them, which means that I never, ever have to worry about it.
The older version would probably be better if you could do...
Oh, hello? Sorry, you cut out for like a second there.
Oh, I was saying, the older version would be better if you could do more traditional animation, but you can't, or at least aren't.
Well, it would take a long time to do it that way too. Well, it's like, on top of that, what's the end result? Like, if I did the traditional animation, which would take longer, in my opinion, I still don't think it would look as good, because like this is so much more drab and like uninspired, and you know, whereas like the silhouette on this is much stronger. It like not only does it make the animation easier to deal with, but it also makes it stand out like way more. So yeah, it's interesting. That was something I looked at that and was like, oh crap. So then I went back and then redid everything, so that it would just fit that kind of a style, you know. So in episode 2 I went with that's right, the biggest things to do with Cascara, since she's asymmetrical, is I made it so she actually has a shoulder in the back that I can move around, and they can canonically, what side of her face is the scar on? Oh, it's the way that it is in the default.
Okay, so when I go back and watch it and I see
it's gonna flip all over the place,
on her
yeah.
left side, I'm going to point every one of those out. When this gets an IMDb page, I'm going to put every goof on there so you learn.
No, whatever.
I'm going to 1-star it.
I blamed it on new grounds.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to put this on new
grounds.
grounds.
Bring out the blam wand.
But yeah, so you know, just character discussion. It's interesting. It's interesting how the art style developed. But we're like, it's interesting how things got stripped down to like their most base components. And then, like moving into episode 2, I went back and was like, okay, now that I know what I can get away with, you know, like, what can I add back into it? So it's like kind of a climb back up now.
Yeah.
So it's sort of interesting. But it's like, yeah, you know...
But where's Valderos getting its clothes back?
Magic! A wizard did it.
Oh, we could just...
How many years...
Yeah. Go
How
ahead.
many years would you say did you put into this project for this one episode?
How many hours?
Years.
Well, it's difficult to say because I don't think that it really took years. Like it was years in production, but
you're working on and off. Like
yeah,
how many,
it was
initial production now.
Yeah, when would you say was your official start date or so? I want to say
it's difficult to say, isn't it? Because like I was coming up with ideas and writing stuff and drawing just like.
It was a couple months before. When was the first date you said was going to be February of the next year after you started? Wasn't that like 2015?
No, it was 2016. That was 2016.
Okay, so you probably
Crink
started.
Dink said hello.
Oh my god.
Hello. But yeah, it's interesting because yeah, like when I first came up, I was like, oh, I want to do this series. I wrote like a few different versions of the first episode because I didn't know what the tone was going to be, right? Like I didn't know, like the very first script was full of jokes. Like it was just like nothing but a wacky comedy.
That's how all your stuff starts out. That's how Wonder started.
Yeah.
I don't remember laughing at Wonders.
Well, it's because like the initial like ultra jokey scripts like are really never that funny. It's like stuff. It's like, you know, when you're sitting around in the writing room and you're chatting it up with everybody and you're sitting there like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if they said this? And it's like, it's funny in the moment, but like in the long term, it's just like awkward and strange. And there was a lot of that. And it's like there was a lot of that in Told the Lost too. Like in Told the Lost, the original plot was that Cascara and Louis, it wasn't even them actually. It was different characters. I'm trying to remember how it went. They all they encountered each other in the woods. Like Valdoros's tower wasn't a part of it. You didn't see him get exiled, right? Like that was that happens like off screen. Like it's just a mystery. Like, oh, what's Valdoros doing here? You know. And he's like keeping watch over these like dangerous artifacts. Eternius is one of them. They steal Eternius, and then Valdoros encounters them in the woods to steal Eternius back. And then like
sounds made up.
And then they get ambushed by talking trees. Like, I'm not even joking. That was in the original script.
I wonder where you got that idea from.
And it was supposed to be like the same talking trees as ones from Black Book almost. Like they had the same voices and everything, and they acted the same. I remember one of the only lines that I remember at this point is Valdoros is berating the trees, and one of them just says like, "The blonde one smells of butterscotch and lies," and I still think that's a funny line.
Miranda just said, like a ship that went on a trip that was funny at that time.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about Newer Wonder stuff, and I forget exactly what it was, but I think we figured out a way to fit that joke in. I can't remember if it was just something like a gag we wrote down, or was just spitballing. But
this is the story of the ship that jumped a shark.
We might be able to fit that in better.
Is it gonna be a storybook in that universe or something?
No, it was. I forget exactly what it was. Maybe it was like I think it was like.
I need to use the restroom real quick, so I'll be right back.
We were trying to write not to. Okay, we'll talk about Wonders in the meantime. I think we were playing around with the idea of an episode where we might still be doing it. An episode where like there's a collision with some a comet or an asteroid or something, some space rock, and I think at some I tried to pitch putting that idea in there because like Lindsay sees it. So that might happen if that's how it goes. So
like mission report or like Lindsay's log. Then it says the whole story.
She makes a kid's book and she becomes the best-selling author. So yeah, that was for everybody that doesn't know. We made Wonder, and then Casey was like, "I'm gonna make my own thing, man."
And he made his own thing, and it looks gorgeous.
He did, yes. At least all the clouds. And the dragon, and a lot of it. Actually, this was actually really good because he showed off his really good use of coloring. Not to say much about our colorblind friend here, Chris Bow.
Only slightly colorblind. I got the slight green and red deficiencies.
Yes.
Thankfully, Color Wheels fixed that.
And you've done a really good job of actually picking colors with occasional weirdness. Never weird. Well, you did give us a pink and bright green cupcake gun. That didn't work.
It's cupcakey. People like cupcakey colors.
What are we talking about?
Green. Chris Bow's colorblindness.
Oh.
So I was complimenting you. I do want to say, Casey, that this is because I got to go in a bit. I do want to say that I think you've done a fantastic job of. You've taken a lot of like what I learned in my film classes that I passed on to you. I'm like your mentor, and you have shown that you understand most of it.
Oh, so what's
your fantastic chunk of it?
So Casey doesn't have to go to film school anymore. He's already got it.
So what you're saying is you're demanding a percentage of my income. I get it. I know what you're saying.
I got a special thanks credit, and that's all I wanted. That's all I
wanted.
You
know what that specifically was there for? Like, I mean, there's obviously, but like, the reason why I remember writing you down for a special thanks credit at some point, because a long time ago I was writing and I was like, I can't think of a funny joke for when Louis climbs out of the car and he says, like, oh, this map cost me, and I didn't know what to say, so I went to Twitter and you were like, my best compass, so I put that in the episode. I was like, there you go, whatever. Yeah, that was something you did. So yeah, it's been a long time, Davily. I apologize. I mean, I don't know. I won't get into all of why. It's just been, it's been a long time. It's fine. I will be streaming more in the future, but it's like I gotta get things ready before I can do art streams. I would stream video games because I play Overwatch now and then, but I don't know. Like, I don't want to spend loads of time doing it.
Wait a second. Rem, you made the this is nuclear fallout joke? That was my favorite joke from that. Holy crap.
I'm not sure if he did. I don't remember anyway. It's been a long time.
Now I trust him more than I trust you.
I know, I trust him too. I see his words.
That was, for those who don't know, this was an old Christmas card. Was it Casey Steals Christmas Again or something like that?
It was how Casey Stole Christmas.
Yeah. Again, it was like the remake.
It was the second remake, yeah. Which I would play on the stream, but it's embarrassing and old, and uses copyrighted music. So
the joke at the end. So he and Santa get in this big epic slave fight, and Santa blows him up, and then at the end, Casey is just coughing and like curses, "I'll get you next year," and then it fades to black, and he's like, "It's snowing and everything." He's like, "Wait, this isn't snow. This is nuclear fallout." And then the credits just roll. And apparently, Ramirez is telling us that he wrote this joke a decade ago in our Discord chat.
Well, it's fine. Everyone takes credit for everything I do. So whatever.
We'll do something original.
This is as original as it gets. What? Oh, Captain Atomic.
Captain Atomic. Yeah.
Everyone's still demanding I make that. I
storyboarded it and I want it.
Your icon in Discord is one of the cloud backgrounds you made for Captain Atomic.
This one?
And also, I wrote you a theme song for Captain Atomic, too.
Oh my goodness. I'm being mentioned in a comment. I'll have to go check on that in a bit. It's like I'm like playing whack-a-mole right now with my desktop. Because I'm like streaming, right? So it's like, oh, these Facebook messages keep popping up, and I gotta keep closing them, you know? And it's...
Oh, okay. So I've got to go to bed. So let me finish saying what I wanted to say with the thing. So what I learned in my film class was how to use visuals as motifs to tell a story, and then Casey and the basic story structure, H-sequence story structure that movies tend to have. But as far as visuals go, Casey in this one has used the yellows and blues. You've used like depth of space and flatness of space and things
yellow
like
versus
that.
blue versus red, or versus magenta,
versus red and other stuff. He's taken a lot of how to use that stuff that I have learned, and I have pushed onto all the projects that we've worked on together. You've also listened to me explain this several times, and you have a fantastic understanding of it. I still want to buy you a copy of the book that I have, my textbook. I'll send it to you at some point, like Christmas or something. I'll figure out a way to get it to you.
Oh.
You are, to me, you are a filmmaker. I don't know if that means anything, because what am I? But you understand.
I don't know. I don't know if you can, because I mean, I don't sit down and like, you know, I mean, like factories make film. You know, I mean, I'm trying to make a joke about not movies, but like the actual film itself that you film movies with. That's what I'm trying to make a joke about, and I started making that joke, and now I can't figure out how to finish it.
This is why Ramirez needed to make that nuclear fallout joke, because you couldn't figure anything out.
My typical humor style is like something dramatic's happening, and then I say something really stupid. It's like
His face is happy.
Yeah, like that's my favorite kind of joke. Like in episode 1 of 12 Lost specifically, it's like towards the end where Valderos turns into a dragon and it's like wonderful and the music's like wondrous, and then Louis just like, "You're a wizard lizard," and I'm just like, like it's like a really stupid line.
Or back with old Fred and Bob, and like the zombies are attacking, and then like Bob was like, "Oh, but what if they're vegetarian zombies?"
That's right, yeah. Where he's like, "Well, let's not jump to conclusions. They might be vegetarian zombies," and it's just like, really. This is like really dumb, like dad joke lines, and it's like my personal enjoyment comes from writing them, and then everyone else just being annoyed. Like I love everyone else just being like, "Oh," like everyone else just getting super mad is like, that's what I love about it. So it's like I remember that the wizard lizard line, Pierce, right, the composer, was just like, "Why this line's dumb? Why is it in here?" And I was like, "Because it's dumb." It's like you can't just put lines in because they're stupid. I'm like, "Watch me," you know? And then, like, he was all like, "I'm Googling up wizard lizard, I'm just getting all this stupid stuff." And I'm just like, "Yep, deal with it." I don't know, like, I do get rid of some of that, because it's like, it's a little bit much, but, you know, it ends up working, what is this? I'm distracted suddenly by something on Facebook. Oh yeah, so this is being mentioned on Facebook when we were casting for Toll of the Lost. This is a total aside, but while we were casting, we were going through. We got like loads of auditions, by the way. I mean, there were.
I don't remember being asked to audition.
It was all public all over the place. Like everyone was free to.
I'm insulted you never offered me a role directly.
Well, we didn't offer anybody a role directly. I think maybe we might have asked. Well, no, Xander Mobus technically. We were like, this guy's gonna play Louis, but that was specifically because like he did the character in Captain Atomic: Lord Impossible, which I also wrote, which never got done, and he does like we all just loved his outrageous French accent.
Yeah.
So we were like, there's no one else can, like, maybe someone else can play this, I don't know, but Xander is like, he's, a total sell on this. So, but like, with the other characters, so people are auditioning, and like I said, we got like well over 200 auditions, like over the course of like a week or something. It was to the point that like I would wake up and it's like, oh, I've got 30 new emails with more auditions. And I wouldn't have enough time to, like, actually listen to a lot of them very thoroughly. It got to the point where I would open up the file, and if the audio quality was, like, not great, or, like, there was, like, any number of, like, your basic problems, I'm like, nope, and would just shut it off in, like, the first 5 seconds.
I hear a fan in the background and a puppy yelling.
well, it's like, and I felt bad about it, but it's like, I had to, it's just, that's what happened, right? Like, there were just so many. It's like, I can't get through these unless I do this quickly. And you hear stories about, like, when you're auditioning for roles for movies and stuff, where you'll just walk into the room and the director's like, nope, get out, because you're like, oh, this person's slightly too short or something. And it sounds ridiculous, but it's like, there's just so many people jumping into this that, yeah, it gets to a point where you have to treat it like that, or else you're just never going to get anywhere.
It's a business. Time is money.
Yeah, it gets crazy.
It's an industry.
But it's like, that's why when people tell you want your auditions to get noticed, follow these specific things. I'll see you later, Davily, no problem. But it's like, like, make sure you do this and this. Make sure you like for example, there was one guy, I won't name names. I don't remember what his name is at the moment. I actually have everyone's auditions still saved and all their email addresses and everything because I want to contact him again. But like, there was one guy who, like, was like on with like a bad microphone at the time. He's like on a laptop mic, and there was plenty of time to like wait. Like, we were auditioning for like a week and a half or 2 weeks or something. So it's like, wait till you have like the proper settings or whatever to do it. But like, he was like, I'm just gonna do it now, and it's like he recorded like a really bad microphone, and it's just like, well, we can't use this, and it's just, yeah, it's like, you got to be careful. Anyways, I don't know. This is all just a roundabout way of saying, like, like, listen to the professionals and they tell you like how to do it. But anyways, so when Stephen Kelly auditioned, I didn't know who he was at the time, but Mac did. And Stephen Kelly comes and he's just like, oh, I'm gonna audition, like he says this publicly or something, like on Facebook. And Mac's response was hilarious. He's just like, oh no, Stephen Kelly's just auditioning. Oh no. Oh, I think we actually have the conversation saved where I go, someone named Stephen Kelly just auditioned, and Mac goes, oh no. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he goes, he's gonna be amazing and you're gonna have to cast him as everybody. and
well, I gotta get going actually.
Oh, okay.
Thing I'll probably listen for a while on the stream, but you guys keep talking. Catch you guys later. Congrats, Casey. Don't forget to put it on Newgrounds and make a commentary that you can put out too.
I'll probably put it on Newgrounds tonight at some point. But yeah, Mac is saying in the chat room that I learned a lot about casting. It's it's really true. Casting in particular, I learned a lot about with this episode. Like, I mean, there's a lot of other things I learned as well. Like, like I mentioned, character design, and there's a lot of technical things that I played around with, but as a process, like as a production process, I think casting and voice directing both are probably like the biggest things where I was just like, whoa, like this is a whole universe, and I just kind of took to it, where it was like, I don't want to say like I'm great at it now or something, but it's like I feel like I understand it on like a pretty personal level why this stuff works the way it does and what you're typically looking for. Like, I actually have some regrets in the voice directing, because I sat in, like, Mac would direct people and I would sit there, and it would be like, Casey, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds fine to me. Like, I don't know what I'm looking for. Where there's things now, it's like, oh, I wish that I had, like, urged people to do more, like, like, for example, when they're in the tower, towards the end, they're, like, running. Like, oh, we should sound more out of breath, or, like, these things should be said more quickly because, like, there's this stressful situation, and we're gonna have, like, this sort of pacing built up with this, or, like different emphases on different places where, it's just things like that, like in that, and then doing storyboards at the start, because in this I would do storyboards as I needed them. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna work on this scene now. Let's storyboard this one scene, and it's like, oh, okay, no, that's a bad idea. We should storyboard the entire thing first, and then we can say, okay, here's where here's where we need to do pickups. Here's where we need to do this. Whereas in this case, I had to wait till the very end before I had that information. So, yeah, there's a lot of things where it's like, oh, okay, I got to shuffle around how this is done. But that in the future will be done better. But it is what it is. I'm just learning.
So not every bit was storyboarded. You only storyboarded the scenes you needed.
Well, everything ended up being storyboarded more or less, but not all right away. So it was like, I went to work on, like, a scene, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to work on scene 2. And I would just storyboard scene 2, as much as I was comfortable doing, because I wouldn't storyboard the entire thing, or I wouldn't do, like, a lot of detail in the shots, or whatever. And then would just do that one scene, and then when I went on to work on the next scene, I would storyboard that scene, and now it's like, oh, I probably should storyboard the entire episode beforehand. And there's a lot of things in storyboarding, too, where I would just be like, oh, whatever, here's how the blocking works, I don't care. And then, like, it's like, oh, wait, no, I probably should actually try to draw, like, a lot of the movement and stuff as best I can, because I ended up having to wing it through a lot of it, where it was like, I would, the storyboard was kind of shaky or kind of vague, and it's like, I have to, like, make up things, or, oh, this might not actually work in the long run, so... Yeah, I went through and learned a lot of stuff there too, so it's just, it's all just a process, and it's like, I kind of knew going into episode 1 that it wasn't going to be very cut and dry, right? Like, I knew, oh, there's going to be things I have to learn, there's things I'm going to have to figure out, and I was also sort of aware that there was going to be things that I was going to have to learn that I didn't even think were things that you could learn, right? Where they were just like, tool. Yeah, like, it's just you come across them at random, and it's like at the end of the journey, you're going to look back and say, like, oh man, I didn't even think that was a thing when I started. So there's a lot of that going on, and it's like, but see, I knew that was going to be the case walking into it. I was prepared for that aspect of it, so I didn't really fret too much about things being kind of shaky at times. I just did the best job I could, and was like, oh, I'm gonna pick my battles on like what I'm gonna learn here and there. Like, I'll do like 1 or 2 complex shots per scene, and then leave it at that. Like, I'll find ways to take shortcuts through everything else, so that way I'm not like spending tons and tons and tons of time. Like, for example, the doorknob shot where there's like the reflection that the camera goes through. That was the thing where I was like, okay, I'm gonna sink a lot of time into this and seeing how I can make this work. It's not the best it could be, like, it's a little shaky, but it looks alright. I tried doing some different things with it at first, and they didn't work out, and where it's at right now, I can't really do much about without just reanimating the whole thing. But that was like my moment where I was like, okay, I'm gonna take like several days and just play around with this whole shot and an idea, so I can learn how to do stuff similar to this in the future, but for the rest of the scene, it'd be like, let's just keep it very, by the numbers, shot, reverse shot, stuff like that. So yeah, it was a whole thing. I think at some point you asked like how long it took to do everything. And I basically never answered.
Like, from when you first started to right now, like, how many years do you think you put into this project?
So let me think. Because I know that I made the original opening credits, and that was before we even had voices, in June, I think, of 2015. And then I think I got to work officially around Christmas time. So
Okay.
basically from the start of 2016, like very early 2016, or very, very late 2015 till now. And there was a lot of on and off in there where like I would stop working for like a couple months at a time or something. So it's difficult to say like how long it actually took to do. And there's a lot of things that I won't have to do again for episode 2. So yeah, it's like ideally I would want like a 3 to 4 month turnaround or less. But it's just so difficult to say, right? But yeah, I mean, it was like maybe about a year and a half on episode 1 if you're factoring in all the time where I basically wasn't working. Yeah. Which is kind of frightening. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think other cartoon characters that you've kicked around before will make an appearance like as like side characters, like that whole traveling carnival idea you had a while back?
Oh, maybe. I mean, it's like, you know me, right? When I get writing, it's like I'll come up with these ideas and maybe they don't fit very well, but I just kind of keep everything in the back of the room, and I'm like, oh, let's drag this idea out of the shadows and just use it, So, I even do that with like so for like Doctor Who, for example, they'll show like a teaser for an episode. And I'll be like, that seems really cool, and I'll get like this idea about what it's about, and then the episode comes out and it's something completely different. Like, for example, the Christmas episode with Santa Claus, I thought this would have been brilliant, that the Doctor's like, Santa Claus is real? And then, like, he would have had to protect the North Pole from Daleks, like Santa's workshop. I was like, that would be great. I want to see
Santa
that.
Claus is a Time Lord.
Yeah, it turns out that aliens are here to steal Santa Claus's technology, and they're going to conquer the Earth with it. But they didn't do that at all, and I thought that sucked. And I was like, you know what? I'll just do that in Toll of the Lost. So it's like I've got ideas like that where I pull them from other things out of inspiration. But yeah, no, it's I don't know, it's the whole thing. I don't know. The traveling carnival idea, I might. In fact, that was one of the original ideas for Toll of the Lost before we even knew what the name was going to be. It was like, oh, what if Valderos is captured by like a traveling carnival, And that obviously didn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of stuff that just kind of digs its way into this. So I'm looking at the Discord. I keep missing looking at Discord here.
Yeah, I still haven't watched the episode yet. I'm behind.
Oh, really? You haven't seen this episode, have you?
I have not. I've only seen the bits you showed me.
Oh man,
But
yeah, we
not the
watched
full
it.
thing.
We watched it on the stream a while ago. My strength has always been banter. Yeah, that's what Tiana was saying too. That the
I thought
ping
clouds
pong
are
is
strength.
good. Well, in writing anyway. Like I'm really good at writing pedantic banter. Like to the point that I have to like tone it down quite a lot. Goodness gracious, there's a lot of retweeting going on. Stephen Kelly. I voice the uncompromisingly heroic star. Sorry, I'm being quiet all of a sudden. The chat has slowed down, so I'm like, I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah. I was looking at your old uploads on the channel. I'm like, I remember these streams. Like,
Yeah, it's
you
mostly
working
just
on
streams.
artwork.
Yeah, I need to put some more stuff on there. Like I said, I would go back to streaming.
You need to put that Slenderman game. You gotta
I don't
find the
have it
Slenderman video.
anymore. It's
You
not
gotta
that
find it.
good. It's not aged that well.
Well, it's perfect. It was perfect.
Oh man, I was so drunk during that. I made Mac watch it, and he hates video games. I think he laughed maybe. Looking at the.
How does Mac hate video games? Doesn't he voice some characters in some video games?
Well, I say that. It's mostly just that, like, video games have a bad habit of making people turn into, like, horrible procrastinators.
I have no idea what you're talking about. This is the guy who just pumped in 86 hours in Stardew Valley.
I remember when you first joined TuneWorks, and then, like, we were like, how come Chris Bo hasn't done the thing, or whatever it was? and you were just like, Skyrim's been a sweet, sweet mistress.
Yes. Skyrim is the best.
And it's funny because I remember getting after you about that, being like, well, you can't play Skyrim. But while I was having that conversation, I was playing World of Warcraft. So it's just like, Mac, you've voiced in video games, haven't you? I know you've voice directed video games. He's not in the... He could join the Discord, but he might be busy. I wonder if, I'm just looking here at things. What? Oh. No, sorry. Sorry, everybody. Like I said, we're kind of winding down, aren't we?
I guess so.
Like, I was thinking, like, oh, maybe I'll go stream some Overwatch later with people, but I don't know if we'll actually do that.
I only have Overwatch on a PS4.
It's a good game. We're just talking about games turning into a procrastinator, and I'm sitting here going, like, Overwatch is really good, but it is. You know what I like about Overwatch in particular is that it, you can jump in and out of it like really quickly, right? Because I've played like other competitive. Oh my goodness gracious, I've played some competitive kinds of games before, like let's say League of Legends. I've played some of, whatever, but like the rounds just last forever. It's like, oh, like this is, I'm gonna be here for like 30 minutes at least in this one game.
Yeah, well, with Overwatch, it's like quick play is quick play.
You jump, yeah, it's like you'll jump in and jump out, and it's like 5 minutes. It's just like whatever, and it's really satisfying. Video games are for toddlers. Oh, Max over here.
Which chat is that?
He's in the YouTube chat, so I'm looking at the Restream chat, and it's broadcasting YouTube and Twitch. I don't know what you're watching in. Yeah, Mac the actor's over there talking about how video games are for little babies. Video games are for babies. I'm not gonna do the Mac impression because I'm bad at it. The only Mac impression I can do is the fake Mac impression, which is video games are for babies, bro. And he never says bro or anything, but I think that's a really funny impression of him. That isn't an impression of him at all. So I do it all the time. I think Pierce was the first person to use it. You're gonna ruin all the things, bro. What are you doing? Whoa! So, and this is just like me mocking him at this point, but whatever. I'm looking for pictures. Hold on. Here it is. We'll just leave this on the screen. Actually, where is it? Logo designs. Here we go. We'll just put this on the screen. No, we'll use the blue one because the blue one looks cool. There. We'll just put this up.
Logo.
Yep, it's a good logo. It's really sad because Toll of the Lost doesn't ultimately mean like anything. It's
Toll of the Lost.
It's just a title. It's also funny because like I don't know if I'll actually be able to fit this into an episode ever, because like, so one of my ideas is that the planet they live on is flat, like it's a big disc, which I think is really cool. Yeah, like I think that's a really cool plan, but I've already kind of ruined it because the opening credits, there's like spherical planetoids flying around, and it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense anymore. But I always had this joke where at one point Valderos takes them under the planet, right? So they go underneath and they're like on the bottom, and they're like, what? The planet's flat? And he goes like, yeah. Well, no, they say something like it floats in space, so they're just confused by this. And he's like, what did you expect? It was being carried by 4 elephants riding on a turtle? And it's a great reference, but I don't know if we'll ever be able to actually get it into anything. But that's okay. Well, who knows? I don't have to have it.
Maybe it's flat depending on your worldview.
Well, the goofy thing is that I wanted to make sure that the series adhered to like some proper laws of like consistent physics and science, right? And a flat planet is really difficult to make exist in a universe that has gravity in it, right? Because gravity gravity originates from points, right? That's why, like, when you throw a hammer, for example, it spins awkwardly, like the center of gravity is towards the head, because everything has a center of gravity, like a central point. Which means if you have a disk world, like a flat planet, its center of gravity is going to be in its middle, which means that the further out you go towards the edge, like the gravity is going to be pulling you back towards the center again. So it's like it's like walking up a hill, like an ever steeper and steeper hill, except that it's just flat. So it's like, okay,
well, no, not like maybe like the elephants on the back are constantly spinning around, and so is the disc. And then the turtle is going either up or down, so that the center of gravity just wobbles from time to time.
There's a great Vsauce about this, where they talk about this specifically, why gravity makes flat planets make no sense. But like, yeah, like the further you get towards the edge, the more you're pulled back towards the middle. So, and at the same time, it's also pulling the atmosphere in the same direction. So you're always gonna. This is why, like, if you're in space, when you look at like astronauts in space and stuff, and they like water, like they have like a bottle of water and they just like let it go and the water's floating around. This is why everything forms into spheres.
It's the easiest shape.
Yeah, well, it's because the gravity, like that object's gravity is being evenly distributed. Because everything generates a force of gravity. It's just small. So whenever you like, you know, get a bunch of water in the air and space, it just forms into bubbles. Because like I said, you know, that's just how our universe works. It's just everything forms into even shapes. As best it can, you know, if it's overcoming the resistances of, you know, whatever. So yeah, it's like, how do you do that then? It's like, well, the only way to make it work is that your gravity is coming from a plane and not a point. But like that would mess up everything else too. So it's like, how do you get around this problem? And the only way I've thought to make it work is that if you have a flat planet, it can't have any edges. It's just an expanse. Like it just goes on forever in every direction. And it's like, well, okay, then why is that? Like, how come there's no edges? And it's like, well, like my best theory is that it's like, you know, that the entire world is actually the edge of the universe, bordering a different universe that's creating irregularities in it, which is where you get things like mountains and stuff, you know, and that gravity is being generated from across the other plane. So that's why everything's being pulled towards the bottom, towards the edge, which is the ground. Now, that's all interesting, but then again, I can't explain how the sun is orbiting, because it dips below the horizon. There's like stars and stuff, so that instantly makes no sense. It's like, it's basically easier to just like replicate our universe's physics and just say, yep, this is how it is, you know. So
another idea you could borrow this from, this is an H.P. Lovecraft idea. It's like the entire universe exists as a dream of a sleeping god. And some of the elder gods are tasked with keeping that main god asleep. So, because if that god wakes up, the universe and everything in it blinks out of existence.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is the case, isn't it? Because like I remember reading some Lovecraft stuff. Like I've not actually read his books, but you know, like quotes of him about like, oh, it's the slumbering, you know, we can't wake the dreamer and things like that.
As a thought.
Yeah, as a thought, yeah, that. No, in Toll of the Lost, I think the strongest idea I've had is that you have a realm of, like, pure, it's like unexistence, right? Where it's like, from which everything else is created. So, like, the universe we live in is, like, you know, it's like if you make a painting, it's like the separation between the canvas and the paint. Where it's like, oh, okay, the universe is resting on a realm of pure creation that is just nothing but, you know, just creation. It's just a forge, right? And it's like, and everything else is pushed out from that into these two separated universes. It's like, that's an interesting idea. But again, it's like, a lot of this stuff, it's like, how does it apply to the story? Because that's important, right? You can't just do world building and then not have a plot, right? Like that ends up.
So you have the canvas, you have the paint, and you got that thin bit in between, and that's where Toll of the Lost takes place. And then bits from that go into either canvas or paint.
No, the world that told us the world that told us would be taking place on would be the paint, essentially.
Okay.
Where it's like this is the landscape that rests on top of, like, you know, this underlying layer of you know, basically the opposite of things existing, which is things not existing, which is difficult to explain and makes no sense. So it's, you know, like I said, which is a neat idea. I like it because it's like, oh, so this is like, if people die, this is like where their spirits go, maybe, or it's like you have to pass through this. Like there's like another realm on the opposite side of this layer, and it's like, that's all cool, but again, this, like, how does it apply to story? You know, ultimately, like, does any of this really matter? And because it needs to matter if you're gonna come up with it. I think that it's fun to explore these things. Like, I would love to write an episode where we explore this stuff. But, like, we need to care about it in a way where it's like, oh, we can identify with the characters in some kind of struggle, or else, like, it's all pointless. So, I come up with these ideas, I just kind of I write them down and say, like, yeah, maybe you'll get around to this, maybe not. But I'm not going to go out of my way to talk about this stuff unless there's a reason to. So, but, you know, I'm constantly being creative or whatever, so it's just how it is. I suppose this is probably how, like, a lot of people are when they write stuff like this. But I need to read more. I need to read more of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, because I've only read one book out of it. From what I understand, it's one of the better ones, but I've only read one.
Which one?
Guards.
That's the first of the Guards books. It's not the best Guard book, but it's the first one. It's not bad.
It's all right. It's okay. I remember enjoying it.
Yeah. My favorite Guards book is, I think it might be Jingo. That's a good one.
Oh. I know there's one where they invent Hollywood.
That one would be Moving Pictures.
Yeah.
That one's another good one.
I'm looking at.
And where they invent rock and roll as soul music.
I am extremely good at banter. That's because, like, have you listened to me in this stream? It's because I never stop talking. I live and breathe banter.
If you want a short Discworld book to read that really gives you, like, a nice scope of the world, I think it's like the last Guardian, the Last Warrior.
Well, I know that in the series Legend of the Black Book that we worked on,
the last hero.
I know when we worked on Legends of the Black Book, a lot of people said that the character Xiphon, the wizard, reminded them a lot of someone named
Rincewind.
Rincewind, yeah. And everyone was like, "It's Rincewind." I was like, "I don't know who that is." So I just I don't know, whatever. It's people keep referencing Terry Pratchett's stuff to me. I've only read the one book. There's things in that book I liked. Like, I like how there's a library that's, like, infinite. I don't know if it's infinite or not, but it's really big. And it's so big that, like, people will go on expeditions to find rare books buried somewhere in the library, and they just get lost forever. Yeah, like, there's just civilizations like lost in the aisles of this library.
Lost undergrads.
Yeah, lost undergrads in this university library.
In the Discworld, books have power, words have power, and when you get a lot of words in a concentrated area,
that's right.
They form their own little magical universe. And in the library, they call it L space. In the post office, where all these letters were piled up and not like delivered, they had their own little microcosm of power and consciousness.
And that makes sense, because in that universe, like you said, words have power. So, like, yeah, you build a library, and it's like, oh, the more books you put here, the more magical this area is going to become. Better be careful. And it's like, oops, you've created an extra-dimensional library in this university. Yeah, like, we were talking about this earlier, and I'm not 100% sure how magic works in Toll of the Lost. I know that it's probably based on, like, I don't like the idea of people just being able to, like, go fireball and, like, shoot a ball of fire. I think that's lame. Like, I like the idea of limitations. I like the idea of making it more of a science. So it's like, okay, how do I make this work? It's like, oh, we'll put these runes together, and we do this and we do that, and it can create this effect. So it's like
Discord's a lot like that too.
Yeah.
Like if you have like a magical staff, you want to enchant it with runes and stuff, so that way if you're doing a spell, it's going to draw power out of the staff and not out of you. Like if I was to use if I was a wizard and I wanted to use like my telekinesis powers to lift up like a broom, I would physically feel myself lifting up the broom, but from across the room. It'd be a lot easier for me to just walk there and just pick up the broom myself.
Yeah, it's like an extension of your own life force, essentially. So it's, and this is in Discworld anyway. So it's like, oh, you can craft items where you can use like their life force instead, essentially. And yeah, and there's like, it's like that's not science, obviously. It's magic, but there's rules to it. So it's like, yeah, like I want to do something very similar with Total Lost, where, you know, there's limitations and you can understand the set of rules being presented to you. Because I think that ultimately makes it more interesting as a storytelling device. Like, it forces the author, in my case, me, to think creatively around situations, you know? So it's like, okay, like, Valderos, for example, can't just turn into a dragon anywhere he wants, because like he has to take into, well, I guess this is spoilers, so in your case I shouldn't say, but yeah, it's like there's limitations to how these things have to work. And then it's like, you know, and how do these things work and why, and like biologically, how do you have a dragon that can take the form of a human? Like how on earth do you make that work? And I've had ideas for it, but it's all kind of crazy. We can't get around the idea that there's almost no way Valderos would just not give everybody cancer with like the amount of energy he'd be giving off being this like extra dimensional creature. But yeah, like yeah, I don't know. And you know what's interesting about, because you talked about like runes and stuff, it's interesting how that representation of magic is actually based in some reality. Like, not that it's real, right? But it's that like this is the way.
They're pretty much batteries of magical energies that you can tap into, so you don't have to drain your own physical magic. That's why like wizards in the Discworld would have like their own staves that have runes in it.
That too, but it's also that like you know, like ancient like pagans and stuff, like when you see like spell circles, because you can look this up, right? Like, oh, they drew these things, and you look at how like where a lot of our ideas of like infusion and stuff come from, and all these things. Like you'll see references in modern day to these things as being like, you know, these awful satanic rituals. But it's like, oh no, this is all based on like, because like it's not real per se, but it's like this is how people viewed sort of like the spiritual world.
It's
and this is how
stuff.
it's like this is how they dealt with it back then. And there's like a historical sort of you know, like this stuff originates from something in human history that we can refer to. So like, for example, with like a spell circle, and don't ask me how I know these things. I'm not a pagan or anything. I don't know where I learned
you live
this.
in Boulder. You live in Boulder. You see things all the time.
This
it's
is
like,
true.
You
but yeah, it's
can't
like,
walk
you know,
down the street without seeing a weirdo.
It's like, oh, we're gonna make this big circle and we're gonna draw these like lines of power through it. We're gonna direct the energy, like the innate energy from one thing to another. And it's like you put these different items around the circle, and you put something in the middle, and you're gonna draw the power from things on the outside to the thing, and then the center, and like apply their properties to it. And it's like, okay, you know, and it's there's like a weird alchemy to it, right? Where it's like we're using things we think about the universe to do stuff, you know, and it is actually very scientific in a way. It's just not based in our like modern scientific sort of thinking, where it's like, oh, we have to, you know, like everything is very rigidly like we have to observe it and we have to test it with math. Like there was a point when math had no place in science, right? It was mostly like we're going to speculate and then do experiments and see what happens. And nowadays it's like, oh, everything is very, very, very mathematical. But yeah, it's like, you know, people talk about wizards and stuff, and it's like these people were just basically alchemists that like would play around with different things, and it's like, oh look, I can make this explode if I add this and that, you know, and then people are like, whoa, that's just magic, you know. So yeah, it's interesting. So it's like, you know, whenever we talk about like wizards in storytelling and how they operate and how they do things, it's very much based on like that era of scientific thinking, just taken to like an extreme, where it's like, oh, they actually can generate fireballs and do these sorts of things. So, and I personally find that really interesting, that aspect of it. And I think that's why I like that form, that representation of magic, as opposed to like, you know, Final Fantasy, like I fire raga and it, like a big explosion just happens and does, you know, X amount of damage. But at the same time, it's sad because that kind of magic is also a lot of fun, especially in video games, you know, where it's like, I'm just gonna shoot things.
I'm gonna purchase a spell. I instantly know how to cast Doomsday.
Yes. Well, and it's like, I don't know. It's just that works in like a video game kind of setting, and a lot of that comes from like Dungeons and Dragons, you know. But like, you know, even in those games, it's like, oh, our mage character, like wizards are always really old because they've had to study to even be able to do any of this stuff. They've had to study it their entire lives. There's no such thing as like a young wizard, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of the I think about this stuff when I'm writing this stuff, so you know, it's a lot of detail just goes into it, and it's really sad because with episodes that are like 12 minutes long, it's like, well, I have to convey all of this information visually because there's no way to actually explain, to like sit down and talk about any of it, you know. So,
well, and also explaining it visually is the fastest way to get the audience to understand it.
Yes, yeah, you have to give impressions, you know, kill two birds with one stone. You know, I was thinking about that with well, you haven't watched the episode. I should just make you just go watch the episode, I guess. But like, it's funny because if you count up the lines that the characters say, right? Louis and Valderos probably talk the most. Like, it makes sense with Valderos, he's the main character, whatever. But like Cascara and Eternius, I think Eternius has 5 lines total. It's some like really small number. But you don't really notice, you know, like you when you're watching it, you're not thinking like, wow, these characters aren't saying anything. And I think the reason why is because they're very emotive visually, where it's like you can kind of tell what they're thinking and how they're acting and sort of what's going on in their heads in these situations, without saying anything at all. So you don't really notice that it's like they don't feel like a piece of wood that's just standing around. And, I mean, this sounds like I'm bragging, but I think this is the reason why I get away with that in this. But I don't know. Yeah. So there you go. I'm getting to that point where I'm like running out of things to say. I'm like hitting my dead end.
Well, look, I guess the last thing you could say is goodbye to your audience.
Well, I don't know if I want to leave yet. I guess we are kind of winding down, but.
Open up to a live Q&A.
Well, we've kind of had a live Q&A. It's just there's not like a ton of people watching, so that was one thing I wanted to do. In fact, this is something I want to do a lot in the future when I release stuff like this, is to just like pop open, you know, Twitch or whatever, and just hang out, have like the audience come by and they can ask questions, they can do whatever. This is sort of like me being like, well, I'm not ever gonna have a panel at a convention, so I'll do that here myself. Screw it, screw the system, screw the man. I'll do whatever I want.
Circumnavigate those lousy convention people for not inviting us.
Well, it's just that, like, you know, I don't go to these things, so. But I'd love to have an open line of communication with my fans and my audience. Like, I mean, that's where I develop most of my ideas and inspiration from. Like, I'm an extrovert. It's just how it is. So, you know, like, I kind of need that back and forth. That's why I like comments so much. And I think that's why I go searching for fan fiction, despite how often a lot of it just turns into, like, smut. Like, I still go looking for it, because I'm like, oh, I want to see what people are doing creatively with these things. Like, I like the collaboration aspect of it. So I don't want to leave. I like talking to everybody, and I don't get to talk to everybody enough. Especially since even when I'm live streaming, like when I'm working, most of like you guys don't typically show up, like actors and stuff. Are just like, I've got better things to do besides watch Casey draw stuff. Like, that's a lie. That's not actually what you guys say. I'm just
I like
saying
having you on in the background.
Oh yeah, I'm like kind of by myself, so. But you know, honestly, that's typically fine, because it's like if I'm working, it's like, well, I can't chat and work at the same time, because, like, I have a really difficult time focusing. Like, I usually need to, like, put on music or something and just, you know, bury myself in it. But, yeah, I don't get to talk to people enough, really, so... Like, about creative things in particular. So, you know... That's what that is. I could have swore I've shown you... I guess I've shown you scenes before of the...
You've shown me scenes. You've shown me, like, you animating that Dragon Council room.
Oh, yeah. What's this? Am I getting messages? Oh, yeah, I am. I'm just looking at Facebook and things. Davis Pennant as Dr. Person. I don't want to leave. It's like a parody of Doctor Who where it's not actually a parody at all. You've just replaced the names of everything to sound silly. And that's it. They just say everything wrong. He will cough 4 times. Mac, I don't think, watches Doctor Who. Like, I'm his, like, Doctor Who, No, you know, Xander is the Doctor Who guy. Like, I pretend...
Yeah, I'm a Doctor Who guy.
I pretend like I'm a Doctor Who guy, but I've never really watched the classic stuff. So everyone considers me a phony. I don't know...
So just because you haven't watched Tim Baker and Pryor?
Yeah, well, I've tried to, and I can't get into it. I just can't. Like, it feels outdated to me. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because, like, I didn't get into it till after I saw the new stuff, so I'm used to that tone. Like, the much more, like, faster-paced, you know, like, oh, everything's big and CGI. And, like, a lot of people don't like that, or they think it's lame. They're like, oh, you gotta go to the classics. But I have a hard time getting into it. Like, they're just very slowly paced. So, I don't know. I'm one of those damn people that can't, that you know... I'm simple-minded. I need everything laid out for me. So I don't know, but no, I as far as the reboots considered, like, I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. So my fave Doctor is the first one. I've watched clips. I've watched clips of
that old guy's okay.
I mean, like, it's funny because it's more of a children's show, I think. Back then, like, not all the time, but, like, you'll have a lot of scenes where it'll be like, oh, the Cybermen are doing a thing, and then, like, they'll sit there and just spell everything out that's going on, and it feels like a children's show to me. Not that it's, like, you know, bad or whatever, or that, like, it's talking down to you. It's just that, like, you know, it's like, oh, here's this character, and they're explaining this, like, whimsical world, and I don't know how to explain it. Ricky Lake? What on earth companion are you referring to there?
Ricky Lake.
I guess it's Amy Pond. I don't know, Crispo. We haven't talked about Doctor Who in a while. How do you feel about Peter Capaldi?
I've only seen a couple. Like, I've seen one the first season with him in it. I've seen that one, and I saw the Christmas episode with Nick Frost and Santa Claus. And then
where he's fake brain Santa. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I saw that episode where like, everyone's a Cyberman kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And that was the last episode I saw. And then, like, I got a giant blank in my Doctor Who history. And then all of a sudden there's a new lady doctor being cast.
Well, it's funny because you're not alone in this. Like, I kept up with it, right? Like, I watched through all Peter Capaldi's stuff. I almost called him Keter Pacaldi, which would have been silly. But I kept up with it. It's kind of mediocre. It's not the best. It's really sad because Peter Capaldi on his own tends to be great. Yeah, and he's actually really good as the Doctor, too. Like, he does a really good job. Like, there's some fantastic scenes that are fantastic because he's, like, carrying them. Like, whenever he's on the screen alone, and he's doing most of the talking, and it's, like, even the writing takes a backseat, is what it feels like. Where it's, like, he's getting out there, and he's emoting a lot, and he's a lot of fun. He's really good. He's excellent in those scenes. There's a couple episodes where it's just kind of him by himself dealing with something. Wonderful, best stuff. Best stuff I've seen since Tenet. I love it. but it comes very far and few between, and like the show can't stop being like dumb, where it's like, oh, here he's being silly, and I'm like, oh, I don't care. Like, just give me more of like. Sorry, go ahead.
I think they're probably trying to pander to, like, the lowest
common denominator.
Lowest demographic, because they want to increase the viewership of the show.
I don't know. It's weird because so like Peter Capaldi as the Doctor plays like a really good grumpy old man doctor, right? Or he's like he's always scribbling on chalkboards and talking down to people and being a professor. It's ironic because I came up with the character Valderos long before, Capaldi showed up and then developed him into being kind of a grumpy guy. And then then Doctor Who went in that direction, and I was like, oh crap, they're copying me, But like, it's interesting because, oh, what's this in the chat? It's a big block of text. I don't know though, Mac. Like, so you might be onto something with that. I hate admitting it. So Mac here says, I loved that one of my conversations with Xander. I concluded that BBC didn't realize that a big part of the show's surge in American popularity was because Tennant and Smith were beautiful young men. So whenever Capaldi shows up, the girls are like, ew, gross, the Doctor can't be a grumpy grandpa, TV off. It's funny because people joke about that. I don't want to believe it. Yeah, like, I don't want to believe it because I don't care. I'm like, oh, whatever. I want my, like, me personally, I just want it to be good. At all costs, I just want the show to be good. I want the writing to be good. It's like, I've mentioned before, they're casting a woman next. Like, that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And, like, let's say it's so good, right, that the BBC just says, like, we're just going to cast women in this role from here on out. Like, I would be okay with that. Because it means that the show is good, right? Like, the writing is good. That's what I want. I want the writing to be ace. That's it. But it's like, Aces. Yeah, but it's like I worry that I'm in a minority on this. That it's like most people just are like, oh, I want the Doctor to be sexy. I'm like, that's like a fear of mine, right?
Here's what I want for this new Doctor.
What?
She's the 13th incarnation of the Doctor. That's unlucky 13. I want her to have the darkest, most intense stories of any Doctor.
Her gimmick needs to be that she's super clumsy, because she's number 13. So she's always like stubbing her toes and knocking things over, and just really because wasn't that was David Tennant's quirk, is that he was really lucky. Like, things would just work out in his favor, kind of magically, which sounds like a bad Deus Ex Machina. But they would, like, make it work, right? It's like oh, the world would kind of sort of work to his favor in clever ways. It'd be funny if they did the reverse of that, where everything just goes wrong constantly. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, Matt? Because, like I said, I don't want to believe that that's true, but it very well could be, couldn't it? Where it's like people are just like, oh, I want them to be attractive.
A lot of audiences in America are superficial like that. They don't care about the stories. They just want a young, attractive lead.
But is that true? So, I mean, like, okay, like, I halfway don't want to believe that, because, like, there are plenty of cases of things with, like, attractive characters. I mean, like, look at almost every movie we come out with. It's like, you're not allowed to star. You can't even be an extra in a movie unless you've got, like, a six-pack these days, right? Like, everyone has got to be, like, very attractive. But there's plenty of things that bomb. So that's definitely not the only factor, and I would have to imagine.
Yeah, but they might bomb, but like getting the initial investment from a studio, you have to have like a young, attractive lead.
I do think that it matters to younger people, right? So like, I'm 32, like I'm made of dust at this point. Like, I'm super old, and I'm just like sick of certain tropes. Like, I'm just like, just make it good. I just want it to be good. That's all I care about. But I'm curious, like, there was definitely a point in my life where, like, I wanted, like, I would identify more with characters when they were, like, younger and, like, more attractive. Like, I don't want to sound vain, but there was definitely a point in my life when that was probably the case. And then I grew up and was like, no, I just want good stories. But it's like Deadpool, right? Deadpool gets released, super popular, everybody loves it. And then, like, what's the studio's reaction to that? They go, oh, it must be because it's rated R. Let's make Logan, right? Now here's the thing. Logan is good. They did a really good job with it. But their response is to make R-rated superhero movies, and that's the gimmick. And it's not just like, oh, well, Deadpool had really good writing. Like, it was just, it played with the ideas really well, and people loved it. And it's like, at no point does anyone seem to say that, oh, we should just make our movies good. Like, hire good writers, hire good directors, and make the movie as good as we possibly can. One studio is doing that, and it's Disney. Now, fortunately, Disney just owns everything. Like, they're basically the Emperor of Earth next to... It's like if there was a war between companies, it'd be between, like, Google, Disney, and, like, Coca-Cola or something, right?
Time Warner.
Time Warner, yeah. Like, it would just... Yeah, like, well, I don't know. Is Disney bigger than Time Warner? I don't know.
But, in Deadpool, the male lead, the handsome male lead, he was only handsome for a little bit of it, and then he was ugly or under a mask. Then he was disfigured,
yeah. Oh, and that was like the point too. That he's just like, I'm hideous. My girlfriend's not gonna love me anymore, and that's like the crux of the story.
He was ugly or under a mask for the rest of the movie. You barely saw what he actually looked like.
Yeah. But it's like, but see, the thing is that whenever something genuinely good shows up, fortunately Disney owns everything. Yeah, well, it's true, right? Because see, like, look at how Disney tends to handle products. Well, okay, so my eyes have been opened to this a little bit lately. So you have Disney, and they'll go to make a movie, and they'll be like, okay, let's find like a good director and like a good screenwriter, and let's do the thing. So like with Star Wars, this is interesting, right? So with Star Wars Episode New, I forget what number it is.
Episode 7.
Episode 7. Episode New, they, like, you can break it down to say, like, oh, this was definitely made by, like, a committee, but it's made very smartly. Like, oh, here, it's like we can't not have a Death Star, right? We have to have a Death Star because people
bigger
recognize it. Yeah, but we have to make it bigger. We got to raise the bar somehow. But people are going to be aware that we're doing this because people are smart and the internet exists and people just know these tropes by now. So what do? Make it a joke, right? Have a scene where Han Solo is going, oh, how do we blow it up or whatever, and make people laugh so that it's like they're kind of in on the tropiness and they're like, audiences get on with it. And like that's like a really, really quick, easy way to subvert the fact that you're basically just doing the same thing all over again. But at the same time, what else are you going to do? Like I said, people are expecting there to be a giant doomsday weapon because that's like part of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. So it's
I think they should have kept that doomsday weapon and just deactivated it.
I agree.
They could have had like another like plot in like two or three movies where they're trying to either find a way to finally destroy it or like dismantle it.
Either way, though, you can look at Star Wars and say like, yeah, this movie there's some by the numbers things in it. But every single decision that was made kind of perfectly. You know, it's like they did the best they possibly could to ride the line of what they expected audiences would want. It's like distancing yourself from the prequels, right? It's almost like they watched all of the Plinkett reviews and then just like followed those rules. It's really interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Well, I'd say they followed them to a point because like the studio had to have their own say.
Yeah, but it's like I wouldn't be surprised if they actually looked those things up too and said like, let's see what the internet has to say. These guys get a lot of views, right? Let's see what they say about it. Because like the 7-hour long prequel reviews are like kind of famous at this point, so yeah, it's like you see that though, and it's like okay, so Disney's really, like, I don't want to say clever, but they know what they're doing from like a business perspective. They've got the business side of it down pat.
They've been in the game for a long time.
Oh yeah, and it shows. They always it's like J.J. Abrams being the director. Like that ain't no mistake. They knew people would react to that by saying like he always should have directed it. Like they knew it ahead of time before we even knew it probably. So they're really good at that stuff. But it's funny because they like to hire a lot of directors before those directors become big. Like they hire kind of like not really no names, but they'll hire like kind of smaller directors. And I think Red Letter Media brought this up that they probably do it because it saves money, and these are people that they can boss around, but they still have some sort of reputation that's going to get them, you know, seats in the theater. So it's like, on the one hand, they're geniuses, and on the other hand, I kind of hate it. Like, if a Disney movie comes out, you're guaranteed it's probably going to be pretty decent, and you're going to enjoy it. But at the same time, you enjoy it because they have, over the years, managed to find, like, the perfect way to do everything. And it's like kind of disgusting at the same time. So, when I say, fortunately Disney owns everything, it's like a kind of a two-faced sort of argument. But anyway, yeah, so this was like a very long way of going around talking about Doctor Who, accidentally stumbling on what may have been like a perfect formula. And I just don't know if I believe that, like, oh, people wanted a sexy doctor. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think that that's like the studio interpretation of it. Because like if you watch Doctor Who, right, a lot of people agree that David Tennant of the reboot Doctors is the best, and I didn't believe them at first because I liked Matt Smith. But now that I've kind of, you know, it's all kind of had time to stew inside my brain, I tend to agree that David Tennant was the best. I don't know if it's because of David Tennant.
David Tennant had the stronger writing.
Yeah.
Matt Smith's character, he was a very good at showboating and like making like the big impressive speeches. But the episodes that carried the most weight for me were David Tennant's. Like the Family Blood, that one right there, like that ending of the Family Blood, just it still is my favorite. Is like, now I know why the Doctor was running away from us. A Doctor who fought gods and demons. He was being kind.
Yeah.
And it shows what the Doctor did after like.
It gives you that. It gives you that whole thing where it's like, yeah, the Doctor can basically do whatever he wants. Like he's smart and powerful enough that basically nothing can really get in his way, except maybe other Time Lords. But the reason why he tends to run away from all these bad guys is because he doesn't want to have to flex his powers, and because he knows what sort of impact he has on these things, you know?
It's like what Matt Smith said. It's like, nice guys don't need rules, and now's the time and you don't want to find out why I have so many.
Yeah. And that stuff's all handled really well. I think that David Tennant pulls it off better because you feel like David Tennant is a character that you ought to be afraid of. Like when he stands up and he gives his speeches, it's like, oh, you know, like this guy's having a lot of fun, but it's like you don't want to cross him, and you really get that impression. And I think that he did that a lot better than Matt Smith did. In the case of Matt Smith, like whenever he would get mad, to me it felt like tantrums, or that he was being arrogant. That was played up as a character trait later on.
Yeah.
But it was with David Tennant too, right? Because it's like, yeah, David Tennant's arc is that by the end of his storyline, he's like, why am I just obeying all these rules of the universe at this point? Why do I care if there's like fixed points in time that I'm not allowed to change? I can change these things. I'm the Doctor. I'll do whatever I want. And like that attitude gets him into trouble like real quick. And it's like that's sort of his character arc, right? Where he becomes the Doctor Vainglorious. And it's that stuff's all really, really good and really strong. And it's like, oh, because as an audience member, you get into it, right? You're cheering this guy on, like, yeah, overcome these problems. And then it's like, yeah, you're causing more problems than you're solving at the end of the day by being this person. And it's like, and that's what ultimately causes him to shy back away and be like, no, I don't want to own the universe. I just want to see it. And that's interesting, right? But then, like, you know, with the other ones, it's just like they're just kind of, there's not like a strong character arc necessarily. It's just, oh, here's a character, he's funny, he's wacky, he's a hipster, and here's some adventures for him. And then you get into Capaldi's seasons where like all of a sudden it's like, oh, now let's have an episode where we talk about abortion. Oh, now we're gonna talk about imperialism. And I'm like, oh, like, does this have to be so heavy? Like, can't we just watch a Doctor Who episode where he like fights some witches and it's fun?
Yeah.
Like, no, we can't have that. we gotta have a strong moral message all the time, and it gets kind of draining. So when it's good, it's good, but like it's just gotten kind of mediocre. It's gotten kind of too big for its britches in a few ways of like in a sense. So It's going to be interesting to see what they do with new writers, a new showrunner, a new actress. But yeah, like I don't know. It's a long discussion about Doctor Who, but like those are kind of all my thoughts on it, really. Like I've got other thoughts about like the meta commentary and like socio-political stuff that's going on, but like that doesn't really have anything to do with the story, right? Like I just want the story to be good.
The stories are good.
Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time. If you try to explain the stories at face value to people, they sound ridiculous. But, like, when you watch it, you just kind of get pulled into it, you know? There's got to be, like, a word for that. Because Toll the Lost is kind of like that. Like, try explaining... Well, you haven't seen it. But try explaining Toll the Lost to, like, a random person. And it's like, oh, I don't know, there's, like, a dragon and some people, and they do things. And it's like, that sounds lame. You know, Pierce, the composer, at one point was telling me about how he was working at he works at a hospital, and he had one of his co-workers ask him, like, Toll of the Lost, what's that mean? You know, he's Canadian. I almost called him Canadian. Oh my goodness. And he had to explain, like, what toll means. Like, well, toll, it's like paying a price or whatever. It's like, so price of the lost? What's that mean? And it's like, yeah, the title doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? But it sounds cool, and it rolls off the tongue, so no one cares. And it's very Googleable. This is actually a good thing that I don't think people think about. If you Google Toll of the Lost, you're going to get one thing. You're going to end up at my series, yeah. If you Google Wonders of the Universe, you end up in, like, 5 different places.
Or if you type up Lloyd, you get a lot of these Lloyds.
Yeah, you get a lot of Lloyds, yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's just unavoidable, right? But with Told Lost, it's like, oh, this works. And it sounds nice and like, consistent or whatever. So it doesn't really mean anything, but it's memorable. So that's fine. Just looking through the chat room here. I guess it's a good thing that like, at least a couple of the people working on this series are Doctor Who fans, because I don't know what I would do otherwise.
And you also got a Discworld expert right here.
Yeah.
I've read every book, most of them more than once.
I was thinking about, like, I would never actually do this, by the way, because parodies are difficult to do good, especially in a series like this. But, like, I have a lot of fun imagining Valderos, like, putting him in different movies. It's like, oh, how would he operate in, like, Lord of the Rings, you know? And it's like, oh, he's just fighting with Gandalf all the time. He's just like, oh.
If what he would do is he'd probably be like, oh, you need dragon fire to melt this thing? I got that.
Yeah, I can take care of that for you. And they'd be like, no, we have to have a journey. He's like, well, that sounds incredibly lame. I remember me and Pierce.
No, it's like, I was like, how about this? I'll melt the ring for you, and we'll all go camping.
We'll melt the ring, and then we'll reforge it into something else. Who cares? Wait, is it Dragonfire? I thought it was they just had to drop it in the volcano because that's where it was forged.
The only things that were hot enough to destroy the Ring of Power were the volcanoes of Mount Doom, where it was forged, or Dragonfire. And Smaug had the last dragon of his greatness in the area had been killed.
You know what's really sad is that, like, Tolkienisms took such a gigantic hold of, like, fantasy narrative. Like,
he's the archetype for modern day fantasy.
He is, yeah. Which is respectable, but it's also kind of sad because, like for example, dragons. You have other iterations of dragons that are not Tolkien based, which is kind of what I'm doing in this, where it's like, oh, they like, there's all different varieties. It's like, for example, dragons don't just hoard gold. Like, every dragon kind of has, like, a thing that they see value in, so it's not always... It could be just be like, I'm gonna hoard treasure maps for no reason, or whatever.
They just want to hoard, although they do like shiny things like ferrets.
Yeah, they're like ferrets. They do like shiny things, but yeah, they all see different... They all see value in different things. Like in Valderos's case, it's history, and I don't really get into that in episode 1. You can kind of see that visually, but it's like, you know, the more dusty and it'd
be funny, like, he likes history, but the thing is, he collects, but it'd be funny, like, he actually likes current events, and he's lived so long that his current event things are like old and dusty.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, I think in my encyclopedia I described that gold dragons in this universe are like, they're lore keepers, right? So that's what their job is. But they, yeah, they like to hoard things of historical value. Like, and like, the more historical value it has, the more valuable it is to them. And now you would think, like, oh, yeah, you know, like the Mona Lisa, right? That's very valuable and has a lot of historical value. No, I mean, like, you know, oh, this cracked vase is cracked because, like, when such and such emperor was storming out of his room after having an argument with his wife, he bumped into it and cracked it, and therefore it's valuable. And it's like, that's just garbage. He threw it out because it was cracked. It's like, nah, but see, it's witnessed history. History that no one else has known, and it's like, that makes it valuable to them. So they end up with, like, a lot of, like, really dusty, old things that no one cares about, which I think is really funny. But yeah, so, like, that's the thing about dragons, that also, dragons have the ability to take the form of people, and this is something else that has just disappeared because of Tolkienisms, where it's like, dragons don't do that anymore, they're typically just wild animals.
Discworld had something like that. I told you this a while ago when you were still working on the project, about how, if something big turns into something small, like a human, there's got to be some place for that extra stuff to go, and if you don't do the magic
have to be obeyed.
Yeah, if you don't do the magic right, you end up getting a person, and then a big lump of ugly flesh right next to it.
Well, it's like, yeah, I think in Total Lost they, like, bend space and time to, like, you know, they warp reality to change the sizes of things, but, like, yeah, like, classic dragons have that ability, which is interesting because, like I said, people don't typically know this nowadays. Like most modern dragons, which come out of which have their roots in Tolkienisms, right? Like, Smaug can talk and he's smart, right? But, like, most dragons, it's like Game of Thrones stuff. Where it's like, oh, it's just kind of a big beast, and that's really it. People say it's smart, but, like, it's basically just smarter than a dog.
It's a big puppy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they recognize people and stuff, but they don't, like, have a civilization or anything. So it's like, and yeah, like, you know, I know they can do this in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know about where else this comes from, but they can take the shape of people. Like, that's a thing they do.
They can do that in the anime The Slayers. I know that for certain.
Yeah, like, it's
like one of the golden dragons in the Slayers that turn into a human. She's not too good at turning into a human, so she still has her tail and her ears are somewhat pointed. But other dragons that are more powerful and older than she is, they blend in seamlessly.
Or better at understanding human anatomy. It's like, humans don't have tails, like, but I like my tail. I don't know. But, like, yeah, it's like a thing, right? But it's like, you know, when I talk about Total Lost, it's like, I feel like I have to preface that. It's like, oh yeah, they just can do this, and it's like, oh, they can? That's weird. And it's like, oh no, it's how dragons are. I don't know why. I mean, if you think about it from, like, an evolutionary perspective, like biology, like, why would they have this trait or ability? And it's like, would it be so that they can?
It's magic.
Yeah, well, it's some variety of magic. But yeah, there's that, and it's like, there's just these things, like, you know, a lot of this just, because of Tolkienisms, it's, like, gone. It's also something else too, where it's like, oh, orcs and elves are just everywhere now, and like not just orcs and elves, but, like, the Tolkien iteration, like, the representation of orcs and elves. Like, elves are like these fair-skinned, you know, forest people that are, like, you know, perfect and flawless and agile, and, you know, and orcs are like these ugly beasts. Yeah, and it's like, no, you know, classically elves are like fairy people that, like, live in the forest and, like, float around on little wings and like sprinkle dust on people.
No, they're also like known to be tricksters too.
Yeah, they're very tricksters.
Unless you offer them something.
Oh yeah, see, and even I don't know these things half the time, because it's just like, we've just gotten so used to what Tolkien said, and it's interesting because of that, fantasy has been super stale, you know, like, and I think because of that, science fiction has kind of risen up as being, like, the more, like, oh, this is really creative, we do a lot of stuff with this. But people forget that fantasy, you can too. Fantasy is just a universe where you write your own rules, but it can really be anything as long as it's good. But, you know, like I said, everyone's like, it's got to be like Tolkien because that was what was popular, and, you know, and it's like, that has been the mindset for so long now that we've just forgotten that fantasy can be whatever you want it. It doesn't have to be like giants and magic and things.
It doesn't have to be like Tolkien exactly. I mean, like, take, for example, Game of Thrones. It's like, there's kind of Tolkien-esque things going on there, but
kind of, yeah.
But like the dragons don't talk. The elves, or like the children of the forest, they look nothing like the beautiful fair folk.
This is very true. Game of Thrones does take a very different approach to elves. Like, they're mean, right? It's like, but you know what's interesting?
They're just as spiteful and petty as humans.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, it's interesting in Game of Thrones because, like, it goes back to the roots of, like, what, like, fairy folk in the woods are, where it's like, oh no, they're just, like, kind of one with nature. So, like, they, you know, all of, like, that side of magic in Game of Thrones is, like, very nature-based. Like, oh, this is what causes seasons and stuff. Like, that's why we have long winters, because the forest people are punishing the humans for X amount of time or whatever, you know, so, which is a side of Game of Thrones that most people don't even know about, which is interesting. Like, I'll talk about it, and people go like, what? There's giants in Game of Thrones? Like, yeah, it's a fantasy. It's a big hardcore fantasy. It's just that everyone watches it for the boobs.
Well, I think they started out with the boobs because that was the easiest way to sink into like a viewer base.
That and murdering everybody. Everybody.
I believe it's pronounced Moida.
You know, that's something else that J.R.R. Martin has stated, that he has a character that is would be the protagonist in any other fantasy story, and he kills him off immediately with Ned Stark, you know? Where it's like, oh, we watch the show, it's like, this is the good guy. This is the good guy. This is the character that's going to go on to a journey of destiny. Oh, he just got beheaded.
And it adds more like reality to it too, because anyone can die at any point. You can't really predict these things.
Yeah, it's just kind of you can actually predict it in Game of Thrones. I mean, it's getting harder as time goes on, but it's very much based on who's kind of following the rules of engagement in the show. Like, in Game of Thrones, you take your opponent seriously, for example. Like, you take your tradition seriously. If someone says, like, you need to marry my daughter in order to, like, create a bond between our kingdoms, you better do it, or else they're gonna friggin' murder everybody.
There will be a reckoning.
There will be a reckoning if you say, yeah, sure, and then betray them later and be like, but it's true love! I fell in love with somebody else! Oh, you've just got everybody killed. I
was listening to a podcast earlier today about like the evolution of love, and they were talking about like back in the medieval times, no one really married for love. It was about bettering
power and money. Yeah.
Power, money, and bettering your standing in life. Like you want to marry the Freys because they're the ones that have control of the bridge, which is going to be an advantage for you and your people.
Yeah.
You don't want to marry some medic girl from who knows where.
Spoiler alert, by the way. But yeah, or like Game of Thrones treats naivete, however that's pronounced, with quite a lot of disdain. In Game of Thrones, you better be ready to fight dirty. That's a big one, right? Like, there's no such thing as morals in Game of Thrones. Like, if you live by a code of morals, be ready to get the axe. Because, like, that means that you won't be able to do the things necessary to get by. Because everybody else is going to throw those things out the window. And this has, like, some truth to it, right? Like, because in war, in real life, like, wars are often won by the side that's willing to take it a step further than the other side, right? And that's the thing in Game of Thrones.
Well, not only just a step further, but those who see things that aren't apparent to the other side. Or
well, it's like in towards the start of World War II, where it's like, you know, Hitler was like, oh, we're gonna bomb this on this and that date, and then they would just do it a day earlier. And it's like everyone's like, whoa, what? You can't do that. It's like, yeah, I can. Yeah. I can do whatever I want, you know.
Yeah, but sometimes wars are like also won by seeing things that the other side didn't see. Like, for example, when Constantinople fell.
Yeah.
They didn't know, like, Constantinople didn't know that their back door was open. Like,
oh,
like some idiot forgot to close the gate, and so like the enemy troops saw this and like, okay.
Well, there was another good example of this where, like, you just completely blindside people by not following the same code of morals that they are. But anyways, that happens in Game of Thrones quite a bit.
Oh, sorry, I gotta do another story.
Oh goodness.
Okay. Yeah, this is like an old Chinese story. I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently there was this one city that was being defended by like say like 100 Chinese soldiers, and then like an army of like 10,000 enemy soldiers are about to invade the city, and so it'd be like a death sentence for the 100 people that were left to guard this one Chinese city. And so the commanding officer, what he did is he ordered all of his men to retreat, and he stayed behind. And what he did is he propped himself up onto the wall and started like playing like his flute or his musical instrument, whatever it was. And when the enemy army arrived, they saw this. It was like just this one lone guy just like dicking around on his instrument, and the enemy army retreated because they assumed there was some sort of master trap gonna happen, and they're like, I'm not gonna do anything. Like, I'm not gonna touch that.
You know, an example of going further than the other side is willing to go would be like with Alexander the Great, where people would just constantly underestimate him. It was like, oh well, we live on an island. You can't get to us. He's like, hold my beer, you know, and then just like, just, you know, builds out the land, just dumps dirt in the ocean to build out the land, and then turns the island into a peninsula, and then just takes it over. It's like,
you can't untie this knot. Hold my beer. Slice.
Yeah. It's like, you know, that's a case of like, well, I'm going to show you exactly how far I'm willing to go. And again, it's like a Game of Thrones thing. And I think that's why like a lot of people like the storytelling in it though too, is because it's like this universe has no love for its protagonists and its like heroic characters, you know.
Yeah, they mess up, they're dead.
Yeah, it's you follow the rules. Well, not really the rules, you know, but it's like there's a scene where what's her face? I don't remember her name. The big strong lady.
Brianna Stark.
Yeah, Brianna is fighting the Hound, and it's like, yeah, and it's like she's being very fair about it throughout most of the fight, and he's winning, and it's like, oh god, she's gonna die, but I like her, you know, and it's like you're on the edge of your seat because this series doesn't protect anybody, so you don't really know what's gonna happen.
Then she decides to play dirty.
Then she starts fighting dirty. She like throws dirt in his face and kicks him in the balls, and then it's like
bites his ear off.
Yeah, and then everything turns around, or it's like, and she manages to get out of it like safe and sound, and it's like it's like you can predict who will die and who will live in Game of Thrones by looking at it under that scope. Everyone says you can't, but you can. There's a storytelling like bent in this, and you can figure it out. So
I think the one who's gonna make it out on top is gonna be Littlefinger, because he plays the game better than us all.
I think he's gonna get the one thing. You know what his big weakness is though, is that he's really into Sansa.
No, he is, but the thing is, he always finds himself in a position where he is useful. And as long as he has that,
this is true, but that only lasts as long as people want to put up with him, though. I don't know. I don't think he's going to make it out. I think that he's making a mistake by getting so obsessed with wanting to marry Sansa. I think that's the thing. I don't know if... I don't know. Like, I think everyone just kind of expects Daenerys to win.
No, I don't expect her to win at all.
Yeah, like, but that's what everybody expects, which means that they won't go that direction. They'll be like, we're gonna throw a curveball into this. I don't know what that means, but you know.
Oh, Arya's gonna win, but she doesn't care, and she just leaves.
Well, that's something else too. Is that the series can't end with just like, oh, there's a new king. You know, like that's not gonna be how it ends, because it's like that would be way lame. It's gonna result in like the Seven Kingdoms shattering into sort of their own provinces, I think. Like, Daenerys says it best. She's like, I'm gonna break the wheel. I don't care, you know? Like, I think that the series will end with the Iron Throne being dismantled in some way. But I don't know. That's my prediction.
And each new kingdom that arises gets their own chunk of the swords on the Iron Throne.
Yeah, something. It'll end with them all having like an uneasy truce or something with each other, where it's like, well, we can't, you know, like they all have their own armies at this point, you know, and because it's like one of the reasons why the conflict is happening in the first place is because there's like a power vacuum at the top, where it's like, oh well, the the king of the Seven Kingdoms, the ruler of 7 Kingdoms is dead. Who's the heir to the throne? And everybody's like, it's me! And so like they're all fighting for control.
Or it ends with the entire continent of Westeros
sinking into the ocean.
No, just like being obliterated and dying, and then all that's left is like the people at Old Town and Essos just
whoever
watching
escapes,
it happen.
yeah.
Well,
that's
you
another
the whole continent of Essos.
That's another big sorry.
Yeah, you got a whole other continent of Essos, and they don't have the land of like always winter like they do on Westeros.
Well, it's interesting too because you're sort of left with a like one of the other big themes in Game of Thrones is how there's like, you know, a big threat coming, and either people don't believe in it or they don't care. And it's like, that's been a marching threat since the very beginning of the series. You know, winter is coming, and people are just like, I don't give a crap about yo winter. I'm gonna do whatever I want. And it's like, you know, again, it's that naivety, right? Like, this is how this applies to everybody. Because you have your individual characters who fall into this trap. But the problem of, like, you know, like, everybody just kind of, like, the entire series just, you know, the Seven Kingdoms in general just being like, yeah, we don't, this threat doesn't bother us. We don't, whatever. It doesn't bother us. It's not going to affect us. And it's like, it's that naivety that always gets him in the end. Which is probably why we'll see Jon Snow get through to the very end, most likely, because he's the one guy that's like, he's the one guy that's like, no, this threat's real. You all need to listen. What are you doing? You know, so...
He knows nothing except for how to play the Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But, well, I think it's been an old fun stream with a big old fun discussion about story writing and, you know, Disney and Game of Thrones and everything else and what it means to be a character and you know, like all these things. We're definitely getting lost in the weeds here, though. I think I'm going to go ahead and call the stream, as much as I love it. Well, come on, at this point, we're just endlessly bantering about nothing.
Okay.
I mean, the chat hasn't moved in, like, what time is it? Like, almost 40 minutes. So, I'm sure, I mean, you know, the people aren't leaving the stream either, so I don't think that they're upset. But, you know, like I said, I don't think our conversation's ever going to end. I'm going to go ahead and call the stream. I want to do more streams in the future. I mean, like, obviously, whenever we get to doing episode 2, like when that's in full swing, there'll be,
or if we do more Wonder stuff.
Yeah, well, there'll be more streams then because I gotta draw stuff, obviously.
I guess if we're leaving, I'll watch the episode finally.
Yeah, well, like I said, with episode 2, like I gotta get the writing finished up, and then, you know, we gotta do a little bit of casting. You're upset? What? Did you want us to stay? You want us to stay, Mac? If we hang around, the longer this goes on for, the higher the chances that we're just gonna wind up playing video games or something.
That's what I was planning on do. I was planning on like popping on Stardew Valley and just talking while I worked on my farm.
Oh, if there was chat interaction, I might hang around, but I'm not saying that as it means like you guys have to talk. What's wrong with you? I'm just saying that it's like, you know, we're gonna run out of topics sooner or later. Like it's gonna every conversation eventually leads to politics at some point, and I don't want that to happen. So like we'll call it now. But like
Matt's like, well, maybe I don't want to stay now. Video games, no.
But it's good background banter. But you know, like I want to do more streams. I need art to work on for that to like be your thing. So it's just part of the process. But the I'm just looking at the chat. But yeah, like no, episode 2 when it gets to full swing, we'll have more streams because of the work involved. So I just got to get to that point. There's a few things that have to happen in pre-production before we can get to that point. There's a little bit of casting, there's a little bit of writing, you know, and like I'm sure we can stream storyboards. That's probably fine. But you know, it is what it is. So I won't be able to stream right away. If I was streaming, see, this is the thing. If I'm streaming at times like right now, it would end up being video games, because it's like, well, I'm not going to stream working on like sound effects or writing, because that's not interesting, right? So it'd be like, oh, on my break time I would stream. But then it's like, then that's cutting into work I could be doing. Like, time I could be spending doing actual work and not playing video games. So, yeah, it's a weird dilemma. It's a weird dilemma to be in. But we'll get to that point eventually. Hopefully in the future, episodes don't have such a long turnaround. That's like a thing I'm really looking to avoid. But, you know, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream. You guys can always, if you didn't know already, you can always follow me on the old Twitters. It's at the Casey Mobile. You can always support on Patreon, which is always super friggin' helpful. You guys have no idea how helpful that is. It is just insane. And, you know, we'll have more perks on that and stuff as time moves along as well. You know, you're here, so you know my Twitch and YouTube channel. So drop a follow, drop a like, drop some comments. You know, maybe say some. I don't know, whatever. What is it you're supposed to say? They tell you to say. Matt Pat says this on Game Theorist. You're supposed to say smash that like button. That has it's like the top. Like, if you say this exactly, smash that like button, then that has like the highest chance of people actually pressing the like button or something. I don't know.
Well, it's like smash is like an aggressive thing, and so like I gotta hit that like button.
I think it's also that it's different from press the like button.
Yeah,
it's like something a little bit different. But yep, whatever. I don't care. Patreon, Twitter, those are the two big ones at the moment. I have a Tumblr and a Facebook, but I don't do enough with them. I need to do more with them, but I feel bad being like, follow those, because like, you're not going to get much out of it at the moment. But whatever. There will always be updates on these things in the future. So whatever. Anyways, have a fun, everybody. Don't light your house on fire. I
plan on watching the episode for the first time.
Yeah, so anyways, guys, all have a good one. Whatever. That's it. Goodbye.